And the stalemate, you do recall, that was in Parliament over who or which side was the majority or minority of the House, was resolved this week by the Speaker. And he indicated that the NPP, by reason of the former MP's declaration to join the party, had the majority in Parliament. So thankfully, that is out of the way. We are now set to have government do business. Question is, how is government going to do this business in terms of ministerial appointments? And so this morning we shall be looking at this very important issue. Obviously, that is a general anxiety out there as to who gets appointed as a minister in the second term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government. So on the show this morning, we shall be looking at the performance of some key ministers in the first term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo NPP government and wager on who gets to go into the second term as well. We're looking at key ministries such as health, education, agric, national security, interior, and many others. We're going to subject these ministries and ministers or former ministers to some serious scrutiny to see whether or not they deserve a second term, along with the second term given to the president of the land. And so we have constituted a panel that would do justice to this very important issue we will be looking at on the show. As usual, the show runs from now till 9:50, where conversations will be brought to a close. And also remember that this program is brought to us by the kind courtesy of Airtel Tigo. Airtel Tigo, life is simple. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, I'll introduce our panelists for today's conversation. This is the Key Points. Stay with us. We will be right back.
With schools temporarily closed and students staying home, teachers at North Hills International School, the most preferred private school in Ghana, award recipients in 2018, continued to have constant interactive classes with our pupils while simulating classroom experience online. At North Hills International School, we adapt to change and we go the extra mile to make sure any investment made in your ward's education yields the best results. We admit students from preschool to junior high school. Our arms are open to welcoming your ward into our wonderful community. Call us today and let your child start a promising journey of global excellence with us. North Hills International School, climbing academic excellence.
Pepsodent introduces charcoal and lemon essence. The unique combination of natural essences whitens teeth naturally for you and family, because every smile matters.
As a new mom, there are moments of pride, joy, and doubt. Yes, doubt. Has he slept enough? Does she have everything she needs? Does she have all the nutrition she deserves? Each bowl of Cerelac contains goodness that helps your child blossom. That's one less thing to worry about. Cerelac, it's all good, Mom. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
It's our industry and we critique it to make it better.
The finest entertainment pundits here in Ghana with in-depth knowledge of the entertainment industry.
Do not politicize the face of our entertainment industry, because it is not just for fun. It is a lot of hard work. I mean, loads of hard work.
We applaud, analyze, criticize, and update you on the happenings in showbiz here in Ghana and beyond.
There's a reason we speak to the arts and culture. The day we lose grip of that narrative, we are doomed.
This is Simply Showbiz. We set the agenda with blunt analysis of the arts and entertainment industry.
Because it's our passion. My name is Bulldog.
My name is Kwame Ajimaibeko.
I am Whitney Boachimensa.
My name is Anoda Samabe.
My name is Ms. G. Join my pundits and I right here on TV3.
Simply Showbiz shows Saturdays at 11 a.m. on TV3.
Ghana, we got a new episode of Family Feud. Now trust me, your man Steve Harvey, when I say you don't want to miss this. One of my sons' name is Jason.
Hi, Dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who the hell drinking liquor at the ceremony for the babies?
That's crazy.
Ain't that at a church?
I was praying, Steve.
Amen again. Who you mad at? I'm trying to work with you. Thank you so much.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 8 p.m. and repeat on Thursdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Family Feud is brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
Vodafone.
This Saturday on National Juniors Challenge.
You are welcome to the second semi-final of this year's National Juniors Challenge. My name is Kafuide, your quiz master of all schools represented here. Only one of them will make it into the final of this year. So let's put our hands together for Celestial School Complex, Ave Maria School in Dansuman, Pentecost Preparatory School, and from Latabi Okoshi we have Bishop Bowers School, reigning champions actually for the NJC.
Powered by Uniwest Foundation with sponsorship from Best Western Premier Hotel, Bayport Savings and Loans, Bright Schools, Hisons, Institute of ICT Professional Ghana, Prospectus Ghana Limited,
MJC Foods, Anasco Skills and Digicom Engineering Limited, Extra Class.
Supported by
The National Juniors Challenge shows every Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3.
Coronavirus is in abroad, not here.
More than 2,000 dead, tens of thousands infected.
The world has been brought to a standstill by the novel COVID-19, which has once again proven that our health is still our greatest asset. And our best bet for a long and healthy life is our lifestyle choices based on information we receive. That's why Vodafone Healthline is back.
Season 9 of Vodafone Healthline is here.
With some of the most experienced and trusted doctors to address your medical concerns by giving you essential guidelines on dieting, exercise, diagnosing, and treating illnesses to help you live a long and healthy life.
Vodafone Healthline shows every Sunday at 5 p.m. on TV3.
Ready?
Welcome back. This is the Key Points, and we are live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we will be proceeding with the show. Let me quickly introduce the guests in the studio with me. From my extreme left, we have Mr. Ben Efson. He's a pollster and the managing editor of the Daily Dispatch. And next to him is Professor David Abdullahi. He is a senior advisor with the African Parliamentary Network. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
It's great to have you. I haven't seen any of you this year, so Happy New Year. I believe it's another. Great. We're expecting some more guests to join us as we go along with the program, depending on which particular area we're touching on at a given time. And so we will, in the meantime, proceed with the two guests in studio. As introduced, we are looking at the performance of some key ministers in the first term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo-led NPP government, and to hazard some guesses as to whether or not these ministers, or former ministers for that matter, deserve to come back in the second term of the government. We've listed quite a number of the key ministries we'll be looking at, but we'll be starting off. First of all, we'll take a look at the performance of the senior minister, and quite a number of issues in respect of that. Mr. Yaosafo Mafo, the senior minister, led a number of things. There were a number of issues in the media about him as well. Issues got to do with, if you like, the Auditor General, for instance, leading to all sorts of things, particularly as we were getting into the elections, which raised a number of issues. I want to start with you, Mr. Benefson. Your thoughts on Senior Minister, Mr. Yao Osafo Marfo.
Pardon?
Mr. Yao Osafo Marfo, your thoughts on him, performance-wise?
Well, I think that I need to give our viewers, I think, my perception of the president's second term.
Right.
The problems I think he's going to face. This is his last term, and the NPP has a history of always tearing apart when it comes to selecting a flag bearer. Presidents on their last terms, presidents on their first terms tend to be careful because they will need some of the people along the line for their second term. They get into their second and final term. Maybe they are at times bolder than their first term in terms of taking certain decisions. With regard to Mr. Osafo Marfo, I think that he has made it easier for the president. I'm reliably informed he has tendered in his resignation. So when I think that one other thing is that it is the president who at cabinet gives A, B, C instruction.
But I'm wondering, resignation as what? Because technically speaking, that position, senior minister, is no more there, given that there was that end of that era. So resigning as in what capacity?
I think that with him, there have been a few issues which have played out in the media. I think that people think that Mr. Domelevo being asked to go on leave was arising from some of the things that he did. And one, I'm sure he would have known that there were 2 or 3 main blocks that made his party lose a lot of votes. The perception that he came, one of the planks of winning 2016 was fighting corruption. He thought that the NDC hadn't done well and they would do a better job. So one of the planks of fighting corruption, incidents involving Mr. Osafo Marfo, incidents involving energy, incidents involving the Minister of Finance, people who voted for the NPP and President Akufo-Addo in 2016, who did that because of his determination to fight corruption. Along the line, we feel disappointed. And I think that for Mr. Osafo Marfo, his resignation may make it a bit easier for the president to ask him to leave. I think that in his last term too, the president is going to have a few tricky issues. Do you change people because at cabinet level he gives Doc and you assignments and he will be the best person to judge. The media will discuss it and to think. And for perception, you cannot throw it away, Abna. You can't. And I think that so far from what we've been hearing, I think it's important that, for example, he's kept the heart of his operations, the chief of staff in office, the security architecture of Minister of National Security, Minister of Defense, Minister of Interior, are said to have been kept in their positions because you change them. And the president from 2022 would definitely be a lame duck because by then the race would have heated up for the party to elect the flag bearer. So for Mr. Osafo Marfo, I think that he's experienced. I think that he has made it easier for the president by resigning his position.
Very well, and that is yet to be confirmed though. These are...
Pardon?
I'm saying that's yet to be confirmed, the bit about resignation, because that is from your sources. So we were yet to get to that, whether it's indeed it's going to be that which would play out. But Professor Abdullahi, Your thoughts, the second term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government, and as Mr. Efson did, perhaps, situating that, within that context would help the discussion moving forward. Your thoughts generally, a president in his second term, perceptions about, that, well, moving forward, perhaps certain decisions can be taken, certain decisions cannot be taken, and all of that. And then we zoom in on your perspectives on Mr. Yaa Osafo-Maafo.
Well, I think, first of all, it's going to be difficult for the president in the second term, especially with a hanged parliament. You're going to have challenges, especially of passing some of your policies through and getting a lot of things done. So that is the first thing that I see that is going to happen. I also see that the global environment is kind of tight now when it comes to raising resources for development. And at the end of the day, even developed countries are having challenges. So first, you are coming into government at a time when the global economy is suffering from all these challenges we're facing with the pandemics. Okay. Now, when it comes to Mr. Osafo-Maafo, for example, the first thing that comes to mind when I heard about the position was the whole notion of the late Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore, who, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, then he became the senior minister and later on minister mentor. The first question I asked myself was, what is the role of a senior minister in Ghana? Right. And I think without a definition of the specific role he had to play, it became very difficult. And that is where you had the challenges of, probably engage in things that cause a lot of problems for the government. However, I also read somewhere that he said he's even retiring from politics. I mean, if it is true, then...
So there's now a resignation, alleged resignation, and then there's this retirement.
Yes, if it is true, then it's made it very easy for the president in his choice of him as a cabinet minister.
Right, but question again, you bring up the issue about senior minister. Do you think that is relevant or that is necessary? I
don't think so. Maybe we are going to get, I think Lee Kuan Yew progressed to minister mentor. Maybe we are going to get a minister mentor in Ghana. But my feeling is, what is the role of a senior minister? It was not defined. It is not something that is defined by our constitution. Right. So from where I stand, I think probably we copied wrongly, because the first time I heard of a senior minister was in the case of Lee Kuan Yew. And if we have a senior minister, then we should define, if it's not part of our constitution, the parameters of the role of the senior minister and what is his mandate.
Right. But correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Efson, I believe the late J.H. Mensah held that position at some point, correct? Yes, so really, Mr. Osafo-Maafo is not the first in the history of Ghana to be, labeled. But do you think that position is something worth keeping, even if he's not going to be the one occupying same?
Oh, I don't think that in his appointment he's going to recreate that position or fill that position. I'm sure that the position will go with Mr. Osafo-Maafo. I think the position will go with him because you can have somebody at the presidency who will fulfill whatever duties that Mr. Osafo-Maafo was doing. So I'm sure that position, and from maybe over 110, 115 ministers, I'll be very surprised if the president's ministers exceed 90 this time around. I think that looking back and he himself assessing the nature of this year's elections confirms what I had always perceived, that swing voters are about a third. Because if you look at the result, and Ghanaians are getting adept at voting skirt and blouse, deciding that I will punish this MP. I think that I've started doing research for another book on 2020. One of the things which is coming out, Abana, is that because of the lack of clarity from the NDC candidate John Mahama on the free SHS, parents who have kids going into free SHS and who have kids in free SHS, especially the swing voters, may have decided that, look, we'll punish the MPP, I'll vote out their MP, but because I want to take advantage of the free SHS, let me vote for Mr. Saffmouth. People may forget the margin of victory is about 520, 530,000. In 2012, the margin was closer. Your mama won by 340,000 or so. So you can see that Ghanaians are becoming sophisticated. They know what they want. And going into 2024 is going to be very interesting because clearly Akufo-Addo knows he's exiting. He knows there will be problems choosing the party's candidate. The NDC may want to have maybe John Mahama again, or will be in a better position. Things through Parliament will not be that walkover because the Constitution we operate in asks you, the President, to take majority of your ministers from Parliament. So with the knife edge, that means you won't send any minister out. So that the parliamentary stalemate itself will necessarily put the government in a tight corner that, unlike 2016, 2020, where the government can decide that, look, we'll go through, have the numbers. Now, if we decide to go through, are you going to recall those who've traveled? I believe that we will see a better appreciation of reactions from the opposition in terms of, governments trying to see eye to eye with. And I hope that the opposition will also be aware that if they decide to oppose government for the sake of opposing, a third of Ghanaians are not fixed to any of the two parties.
Right. Now that's interesting. I mean, these are interesting times to be in Ghana, really, and particularly for people who are enthusiastic about, politics, constitutional law matters, and all of that. But we're hoping for the best. But still on Mr. Saffmouth, I just want us to look at this. He was put in charge of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda, a very important agenda of the president, if you like. How do you think that went, Prof?
Well, first of all, I mean, my candid opinion is that I don't think it went very well. If you want to go beyond aid as a developing country, your policies that speaks to development has to be moving away from primary, products, production and export. You need to go into industrialization. You need to move to the knowledge economy. And those are the things that you can add value to bring about, growth and development in your economy. If we take a small city-state like Singapore, I mean, they have one of the highest GDP per capita in the world, and part of it is because they don't even have natural resources. So I think when you talk about Ghana Beyond Aid, you need to come up with solid and strategic ways of moving the country beyond that, and I've not seen it. We can say all these things, they are fine, but let's see something solid. What have you done? Have you, if you look at someone like Mahathir in Malaysia, they started the knowledge, they started moving their country to the knowledge economy. They started the multimedia super corridor. They decided to even assemble and come up with their own cars. They exported a lot of electronics and other manufactured products that is able to add value to their economy. So when we are talking about moving beyond aid, we need to be very, very careful not to just bandy things around.
Very well. So the consensus around the table between the two of you, I'm getting is that you think this position would not come back in the second term. Is that correct, Prof?
Yes, I think it won't come back in the second term. But if it's to come back, you must really define the position. What is it going to do? If it is just a position in name, then it doesn't pan out. If you look at the case of Lee Kuan Yew, one I talked about, at least he was the first Prime Minister of Singapore, moved the country from a third world country to a first world country according to his books, but also have been to Singapore and have seen the development in that city-state. So if it's coming back, it should be well defined. It should be able to tell us what it's going to do to help our developmental trajectory as a country. So I don't think it will come back, but if it comes back, it must come back in a very different form. And whoever occupies it must be somebody that is giving stretch goals to be able to achieve.
Right. Now, you talk about the goals and all of that, and I think it would be important for us to look at the novel ministry that was set up in the first term, the Ministry for Monitoring and Evaluation, and how that has also gone. We'll perhaps touch on that at some point. But before I move to Mr. Epson, Prof, could you give us a percentage of what you think Mr. Osaf Mafu deserves, looking at his performance in the first term, on a scale of 1 to 100?
It's always very difficult.
I know.
But, I would say he has done his best, and he has his challenges. So I'll give him a 50-50. Yeah, 50 out of 100.
Very well, that's fine. Ms. Epson, yours as well.
I think I'll give him 40. 40 because...
That's failure right there.
Pardon?
I'm saying that's failure right there.
Yes, you see, if you are given a position as a senior minister, with his history, there are certain things that somebody would decide that, look, he will not come out and say why he's resigning. But certain things were happening that, as a senior minister, I expected some inputs from him, not even in the public domain, because he's coming back from a very rich background as a Minister of Finance during HIPIC times and so on. And we can see that for the MPP, there were two main blocks of dissatisfaction that voted against the government. We are talking about, for example, the effects of COVID. The private schools had already been affected by the free CHS, so they had reduced numbers, consequently less income. The closure of the schools, minimum, the private school teachers, there were about 1 million. And most of the schools did not have access to the funding that the government had given. And I believe that as a senior minister, he could have maybe, given his closeness to the president, been able to look at these things. For example, Galamsey. Yes, now the president himself in his address said we must have a national conversation. Galamsey, minimum 1 million people who deal in it, people who get work around, sell food and so on. And we're having a situation where excavators that had been seized are alleged to have been sold by executives, some executives of the party. It was still hanging. So you get people deciding that, look, you've done it, this is what it is. And I think that, like Doc said, I think that position will be submerged. But the president, I think on his last day, he must have the courage to crack the whip. If the first he didn't want to step on toes and so on, I believe that Osaf Mafu has done his bit. Maybe the circumstances, because the ministers were so many, and because of the fact that a majority must come from parliament, along the line they broke some chains. So you see a situation where Akufo-Addo virtually wins in many constituencies and his MPs lose. That means there must have been a problem of government decisions trickling down and no reaction from down up.
Very well. So percentage-wise, what would you give it?
40%.
You said 40, very well,
Yeah.
that's fine, yeah, sure. So let's move on from the senior minister to another key ministry, which is the Ministry of Finance. And now we're looking at the Minister of Finance,
yeah.
Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. And so in terms of context, this, the government came in 2017 at a time when there was an IMF program being implemented, and also the government came in The program was completed. We exited that program. I think, generally speaking, we cannot say that prior to COVID-19, generally the economic indicators were looking good, confirmed by relevant institutions, including IMF and World Bank and all of that. Then COVID came in and a whole lot of issues. But in the midst of all that, there were a whole lot of issues as well. Scandals coming in where, Mr. Kenofeyati's name would be dragged in. You talk about the PDS, you talk about the Japan of recent times, and a whole lot of things. Professor Abdullahi, how would you rate this minister's performance in the first term?
Well, I think it's macroeconomic performance were good, as you mentioned, and I think he's good in that aspect, in making sure that the Ghanaian economy was stabilized. However, where I stand is that he has much more interest in the financial sector. That creates the perception amongst Ghanaians of conflict of interest, and you just mentioned Ajapa and PDS. I think that is one of the issues that is important, that when you are holding such a very key position, you must be above reproach. Your credibility and integrity must be unquestionable. And I think that is where I have a problem. But yes, give him credit for the fact that he was able to stabilize the economy and make sure that the macroeconomic indicators. However, when you talked about COVID and the impact on the Ghanaian economy, what you begin to see that microeconomic indicators alone are not enough. You need to be able to make sure that these are sustainable and translated into tangible development and growth for the people in the country.
Right, but Mr. Nixon, your initial take on this ministry or the minister?
Well, I think Ken, in terms of performance of his duties, in terms of achieving the target, I'll give him a 65, but I'll take 10 off for the meddling in these issues. So far they haven't been proven. But why is it that
the alleged meddling then we are?
Pardon?
Alleged meddling.
Yes, like alleged meddling. Why is it that that people like putting your name to it? There must be some reason that these allegations always surface when, even though none has been proved, somebody will say, why? Would they die about it? Your name always comes up. So in terms of performance of the job of taking the economy through, I think that he's done well, but I'll take a 10 off for these allegations. Right, and let's look at another aspect of his work, which has to do with the banking sector cleanup. The banking sector cleanup. Yes. Obviously, that was a major aspect of his work during the first term of the NPP government. How do you think that impacted on his performance and how people perceived that ministry particularly? I think that the government did not handle the banking sector crisis well. You see, Abner, it's like you are climbing a tree. Halfway through the tree, your journey, on top of the tree, there's a snake. You look below, a lion is waiting for you. As for that, you will die. You have to choose a way to die. I think that if the government had been a bit more open with the consequences of not stopping the problems within the banking sector, people would have appreciated it better. They took those decisions, they saved people's monies, but a lot of layoffs. And as we speak, certain individuals have not been able to recoup their monies. So I think that whilst the intention may be good, that had they not stepped in, it could have been really bad. I think that communication-wise, I think that in trying to explain, they didn't do a good job, and that would have also affected them.
You think that may have affected
Pardon?
You think that may have affected the whole process and
yes,
had an impact on the perception of that minister along with its of that ministry along with its minister.
Yes.
What you're saying, very well. Professor Abdullah, your thoughts as well on the banking sector cleanup?
Well, my take is that Ghana is a small open economy, and as a small open economy in Africa, our approach in how we do things should be different. Now, if you look at what happened in the United States during the Obama period, most of the organizations that were facing challenges, they weren't, what do you call it, disbanded or, you know, there were some that the government invested in, bought the shares and made sure that they paid back when they were doing very well, and the government actually benefited and people maintained their employment and jobs. Like Mr. Eston said, I think it wasn't handled properly, and I think at the end of the day it left a bitter taste in the mouths of a lot of people that lost their jobs, but also the goodwill that the government had. And if you look at the monies that we used to clean up the banks, if, in my opinion, if they were used to prop up some of the banks, not all of them, I think...
But some would say that, well, there was that opportunity given initially, but that, of course, that money was also, according to the reports, was also squandered. And so then it wasn't going to be expedient for another round of public funds to be made available to those who had not shown that they merited it, given what had happened in the past.
I think the way they expended the money was not the right way of doing it. What you could do is you buy shares in those particular companies, make sure that on the board you have your people that would decide and make sure that the business is run very well. You just don't give them money, they will spend it. I think we are not saying that all of them should be are saved. Some of them should be saved. Some of them were strong enough, and I think if they were given that opportunity, they will survive. Like I said, we are an open, small economy. You know, when countries like the United States or UK and others sneeze, we catch a cold. So our approach must be different. Our approach must be nuanced. We must make sure that we apply economic principles from our perspective, from our experience and our culture. Now, if you look at how much money was spent in cleaning up the banks, wouldn't it have been beneficial to invest in some take shares, even if it is majority shares, make sure that you put your people there to handle the management of these and recoup some of the non-performing loans. And I think that's the best way to go. Now, right now, it's going to be difficult because if you look at the banking sector now, mostly we have a lot of foreign banks in this country. Do they really have the interest of Ghana at heart? But if it's a local bank, at least with time, they are going to be able to train a lot of people. They are going to be able to do a lot of things in their country. That's how they grow.
Right.
So my view is that it could have been done better, like Mr. Epstein said.
No,
and I think it was not handled well.
Right. And I believe that's a general perception out there. And again, of course, people who have been laid off by reason of the effect of the banking sector cleanup also have these concerns, obviously. But Mr. Epson, let's look at this. You said you'd rate Mr. Oforiatta at 65%, I believe.
65, but I'll take 10 off because almost everything, these are allegations.
Sure.
But yeah.
Exactly, these allegations. And you have said that, well, in terms of his job, he did right. So now let's look at this. Two sides. The competence as against the perception of, wrongdoings or whatever. Like you have said, they haven't been proven yet. So the question is, how should we progress in this kind of discussion when you're looking at competence and the alleged perception which is yet to be proven? How do we benefit from somebody who is competent but has these allegations against them and not been proven yet? Because I'm looking at the potential or the possible situation where perhaps these allegations or these scandals could lead to a situation where perhaps people will be saying that, well, there's so much being said out there about you, that perception, so perhaps let's, just sit aside and let's have somebody...
Well, if I were to advise the president, I would say you keep him there, but with lessons from your first term, you know how to deal with it. And I'm sure he can foretell himself. I mean, I'm sure I don't think that he enjoys that any bad thing, allegations are made that he's involved. I'm sure moving forward, he's going to be a bit more careful. He's going to let the ministry or the government be more open in terms of letting the public know certain things. So I think that he's done a good job, and on efficiency, I'm sure the president will keep him knowing that there are lessons that deflect. The one you are coming, will he have the same work methods? He's got the confidence of the international banking institutions. And I think that I'll be surprised if the president keeps him there.
You've scored him 65. Prof, what would be your score?
Well, I'll score him 60, but I would say that he should be moved to a different ministry. First of all, like I said, he has a lot of interest in the financial sector, and that's where the perception comes.
Conflict of interest.
And it is very clear that one of his companies is part of the underwriting of most of the bonds or most of the funding that is raised. Now, our perception is very important in the international environment for someone who's worked outside. You can be competent, but if there's a certain perception, it tends to have an impact on the way people deal with you. And also, the kind of, what I would say, benefits you get with the interest rates when you go to raise these funds from outside also has to do with the perception.
Right.
And I think, even though he's competent, I think the president can use him elsewhere, whereby at least that perception issue and the whole issue of his interest in the financial sector in Ghana would give him a little more leeway to do other things that would be beneficial to.
What area would this be? I mean, if you would recommend it, because this is somebody who has shown competence in the area of finance, and so obviously that is his terrain. So where else do you think he would?
Well, I think for me, it's even something that I've always thought about, that finance ministers should be developmental in their approach. He's a banker, so it's an entirely different thing altogether. I think, there are other areas in the economy that he can work. I can't really prescribe, for the president what he's going to do. But we must not forget that, that's his cousin. And I think in most cases, you need to look at all those things in making decisions. But I think, yes, competence is important, but also perceptions also play an important role. So you need to make sure that you balance both.
Right, that balancing is what is where the issue is.
Yes.
Walking that tightrope. But it's quite interesting. But still, in respect of the finance minister and the fact that around the table here, there's this agreement that, well, there are allegations yet to be proven. What, as far as I'm concerned, if I were in his shoes, I think it would be in my interest that the scandals are brought to a logical conclusion, so that at the end of the day, it would be, the point would be that, well, these came up, it was investigated, and then you were cleared or whatever. But as it is, if it's still pending, there's still that perception that, well, you probably did it, you didn't do it. What does that say about the process of ensuring that investigations are done when scandals come? Because scandals will always come, but how it's dealt with is what matters. And briefly, if we could, touch on this, and then we'll move on to the next ministry.
Well, I think that the government in the first year must be able to bring closure to quite a lot of the investigations that have been going on for 2-3 years. Because once he gets into the second year, that is 2022, this is going to be a crucial year. He'll be exiting, and then you need to find out, are you going to take 6 years, 5 years, 6 years to investigate the scandals? And I'm sure by this year, many people will expect closure on some of these investigations. They've rather kept too long, even though we are dealing with people's human rights and people's credibility. I think that some of them 2-3 years, they've rather dragged along, and I think the government must deal with it.
Very well. Let me quickly announce that we have Mr. Franklin Kojo joining us via Zoom. Mr. Kojo, can you hear me?
can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. May yours be more blissful than others.
I hope yours is also blissful. Great. So it seems, you know, we are off, or the country is off to have government business start with the resolution of parliament issues and all of that. And so the next thing we're looking at is government, you know, being constituted, i.e. the executive and the president naming his ministers and all of that. Your thoughts on, you know, the process so far, i.e. Former ministers, and how you see persons coming back into the second term in certain positions. We have been looking at the position of the senior minister and the finance minister. Your thoughts on these?
Well, good morning once again. If I heard you correctly, I think the feedback, there's an echo. But if I heard you correctly, you're asking how things turn out and whether the appointment processes would see some former ministers returning and then those who have been asked.
Right,
well,
largely.
Okay, so that's fine. Right. Well, first of all, we have been blessed with an election that has turned out to naturally constrain us to think about the issues around winner takes all politics. That being said, the president's strength in parliament in terms of the numbers on his side have evened with that of the opposition. So what it means is that there's a narrower pool from which ministers will be chosen from, because as you all know, I'm sure your guests have said it already, that constitutionally is supposed to choose 50% of his ministers from parliament. Well, 137 is still a pretty good number, just that a lot of them are not necessarily, I wouldn't call them ministerial materials for a second term precedent, you know. But having said that, those that are returning, or those who, well, there's been some warning that those who lost their seats and the ministers will not return to power, which I find very interesting, by the way. And I think it's part of the plan to reduce the size of government by 30%. We all hope it stays there. But there are a few notables that I believe the president can do without, cannot do without, really. What it means is that loyalty is key. He's also looking at the technical competence, and the finance minister obviously is one of them. Yes, there are many hanging salts around the finance minister's neck. The likes of Ejapa, PDS, and Kelman. These are notable, really badly done deals that unfortunately haven't led to some good legacy for the finance minister. Having said that, though, you can't take away from the fact that he's technically competent. But for the fact that we had COVID, at least the macro numbers are looking better up until we had COVID. And indeed, I'm sure he himself had some remorseful moment to look back and say, well, can the Japan be done differently? Can you probably go around changing the name and dropping all the vested interests who were part of the deal, and then making sure that you bring it back to the table in a manner that is very conciliatory, everybody's views are well addressed and all of that. Is it possible to, so essentially what I'm trying to say is that knowing the finance minister is dogged, and he's really, when he wants to do something, he wants to go and he goes ahead to do it. But these three incidents have given him, I'm sure, some moment to reflect. So if he's giving the nod, because I think he must have done about 60 to 65% well, by the way, that's by my analysis. If he's giving the nod, he must be sure that he's leaving a better name than he left the last 4 years in office. So technical competence for me is key, and maybe a second chance to do things right. I don't know if you mentioned some other person. And
yes,
I think
we talked about the senior minister. I think question has been the relevance at all of such a position, and we are looking currently at the former occupant, which is Mr. Yawasafo Mafo, and he has also had some, scandals in which his name has been mentioned and all of that. And so we're looking at that, whether it should even be maintained as, an office that would have to be occupied.
You see, that office was an aberration on what constitutes proper governance. It shouldn't have been set up in the first place. That man should have been part of the Council of State, advising people, not to be given an office with a budget. If you recall, when office was set up, even both sides of the aisle never liked it. In fact, I know for a fact that the office's budget was several millions, and initially they wanted to yank it off, and then they started to compromise and give him 6 million. That office has been a thoroughly wasteful one, and there's been nothing usefully done to this economy, except of course editing the public sector reform paper the NDC had vigorously worked on. That's the only creditable thing I think that office did. So I'm happy. It was scrapped. He didn't resign. Let's not confuse the issues. It was scrapped. It was not going to be returning anyway. Some of us have our ears very close to the ground.
So you're saying for sure that it has been scrapped? Is that what you're saying?
It was scrapped. It wasn't that he was offered to resign. Look, he's not helped himself. He had a good name. Unfortunately, look at all the scandals he was associated with. I mean, the incomes, the Unipass, the $1 million growth, and even though it's in court. I mean, for me, it was a needless office to start off with, by the way.
Very well. Now, let's go back to the finance ministry. Because, I mean, looking at the whole period of the Fourth Republic, it would appear that that ministry has hardly seen a minister return to continue in that position. And, I mean, if you look from the period of Dr. Kwesi Botwe, I think he had, a second term. But beyond that, I'm not sure if any other finance minister has had a second, if you like, bite at the cherry when it comes to that finance ministry, speaking volumes about how that office is. And what would you say would make the difference in this case to have Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta return as finance minister?
So there are a number of traditions that have been broken by this election, isn't it? I think that knowing the president very well, who respects loyalty, but for loyalty, Nana Fremapari, my good mother, should not be returning as chief of staff, for instance. I think she's done her job well, and she should be serving another capacity, because this executive needs something stronger than Frema. And on that, you see, now you're asking what happens to, because the finance minister is the first time in history since the likes of Botwe will be returning. The same loyalty card is what the president is going to play. Because frankly, and like my name, look around you. Look at the way the president conducts his affairs. Look at the way he thinks. Look at the way he believes in some of the things that his previous administration did. You seriously think he's going to change Ken Ofori-Atta? I know Ken is going to go into choppy waters. The opposition is going to chop him up, and they have a line of arsenal they are going to throw at him. Some of them will stick, but eventually, realpolitik will play, and I think he's going to be retained. The president has no choice. I don't think he has anybody else to really choose. If you give it all the parameters I've mentioned, especially the often referred, it's not a palatable term. I don't like to use it often, but apart from the word nepotism, this is probably positive nepotism because it's competent as well. I mean, I think the president would have no qualms retaining the finance minister because he's
despite the challenges you say he's likely to face, perhaps during his vetting?
Yes. You see, the finance minister has got to put his bets on the cards on the table. And the opposition will rightly do so because, as I mentioned to you, those three cardinal sins of the finance minister stick like none other. And they were aberrations, poor judgment. And so he's definitely going to be in trouble. But I would look at the technical competence. I'll look at the other things he's done. in terms of holding the economy. Look, if you noticed, almost all the macro numbers that they promised, with the exception of a double-digit inflation, double-digit GDP rates, which was never attained, but they came close to. And I think it was, for me, this thing speaks well. Of course, you can debate the issues about inclusive governance and inclusive democracy, because not all of these macro numbers reflected. But until COVID came, with the exception of some other poor policies like NACOB and all the rest, I think you can give him a fair pass, close to, 55 Imani gave him. But personally, I think I would go a little more, because I think in terms of his personal capacity and his technical competence, I think he's the only person that I suspect will still be retained, and would have met all the parameters I mentioned earlier that the president will respect, especially loyalty.
Right. Now, you've indicated, at various points of your submission that he's technically competent. I would want to have, a specific rating from you on the scale of 0 or 1 to 100. How would you rate him?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I'm saying you have indicated at various points in your submission that, yes, he has exhibited some technical competence. So that is, understood. But I just want you to put a figure to that competence you think he has exhibited on a scale of 1 to 100.
Well, I think that together with his one deputy, Charles Dubois, especially, that comes close to 65 to 70%. I mean, in terms of technical competence, even though Japan exposed them badly, it was poor judgment. But I think they are technically competent.
Very well. I would want us to move next to the education ministry, because that ministry housed the president's or the government's flagship program, the free SHS. How do you think that minister has performed, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh?
Well, as I hear, he's being moved to another big ministry.
Yet to be confirmed, yes. So
it's good news. Matthew is good. I mean, he's shepherded, given the nature of the politics of the SHS, he had the political gravitas to get it through. And you notice some of his comments were quite unpalatable. He's my friend though. And I never thought he could make such comments. But he was the one needed at the right time to push through a policy that was quite financially straining. And also, not in terms of, should I call it the vision for building a country, a 21st modern country. I don't think free SHS it is. But of course, people talked about inclusivity. We talked about making sure that those who do not have it helped a lot more, and those who have it continue to pay. But that's a debate which is still unfolding. If you notice, the finance minister stayed on that debate because he was also trying to be a realist and then was giving the cold shower. But his good is moving, and there can be no better replacement than Honorable Yao Educhum. Educhum is a thinker and a doer. He's managed education in the West, and he knows what it is to manage education in a developing country like Ghana. He's a dual character. DUOR, and you take him for. You look at him and you think he doesn't move or he doesn't tend things. He does do a lot of good. The only thing that he needs to up a bit more would be his the political, should I call it gambitry? Because the point is that this country, politics is all about being very stern. But education is such that, it should call for cooler heads. If he's there, I'm sure a few things will change. The public university bill, for instance, may not probably see the light of day and may come in a different form. I'm only saying that he's a good man and a good technocrat. I think there are a few people there. The chief director of education is also a good person. I'm sure the guy in charge of the curriculum development. I have my views about that, by the way, but I think they've done quite well. Amma, who is now a parliamentarian, could see or be given some prominent, probably deputy ministerial role at the education ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Sorry?
Carry on.
I didn't hear that.
Okay, I thought you still had some points to make, so I said carry on with your points if you do.
Oh yes, I was just wrapping up on education, and
Okay.
I think it's a good one. What I'm not too clear about is the conversations about the Ministry of Communications. If what I'm hearing is true, I think the cards being penned are wrong. I don't see why Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, a ministerial material in stature and in intellect, should go and deputize for the former Minister of Communications, who I don't believe should be retained as Minister of Communications. Maybe a much more lower, lesser role play within the government, because she's still a good asset. I think she's just a poor minister when it comes to communication, especially from 2018, 2019 going. Some of the decisions she maneuvered were very poor relations with the constituents, which is the telcos and all of that, poor policy planning and poor revenue making for the country. These are things that make me think she deserves a 30%. If you think that she was one of the first 5 persons Imani properly assessed as one of the most inspirational ministers in 2017, only to lose that position because of poor judgment and a number of rather wrong decisions. I think she's a good asset to the party, but I don't see her. I'm not the president. I think the president might retain her, but I think it would be an aberration to have Kojo Nkrumah deputized for that combined ministry, as I'm hearing right now, of Ministry of Information and Communications.
Right. So those are information you're picking up from your sources regarding the communication ministry, correct?
Oh yes, I've picked up quite loudly, but I'm sure it may change, because again, I
exactly. So we'll wait till it's confirmed or otherwise, and then we can,
Well, the palpitations are all over the place, and I'm sure there are people who are also, pushing all sorts of names here and there and all kinds of things. But Kojo Nkrumah is an asset. I don't know what politics at play in the second term. People should not think that he's rising too early. And so his wings should be clipped. I think that would be wrong.
Right. Now you are picking up certain information. We are also picking up some information regarding the Honorable Kojo Nkrumah. We are hearing that he's been, tipped for the president's spokesperson. What do you make of that?
The point about being a presidential spokesperson, however titillating that sounds, it's probably a much lower role. I don't think I like to see Kojo Nkrumah do just that. I think Eugene is already doing that job, even though he only writes speeches. But I think that it's important that, maybe the president needs some proper communication channel, and apart from the party that does it, maybe fine, but in my eyes, I think that would be a demotion, because there's nothing really happening at the presidency all the time that needs him to be a spokesperson of the presidency. I mean, there are many channels through which the president speaks, ministers, ministries, and what have you. I think I'd like to see Nkrumah being more like a doer, getting things done. But anyway, those are my wishes. They are not. I'm not the executive. I didn't stand for an election.
You never know who is listening and perhaps is ready to take it on board. So it's always good to speak your mind. But that's fine. But you did mention earlier on regarding the Ministry of Education, and this is the last thing before we let you go. You talked about the fact that the Honorable Dr. Matthew Poku Pempe was needed, and he was at the position at the right time to push through a certain agenda. Obviously speaking to the fact that yes, he did, he went ahead strongly to get the agenda through. Then you talked about the fact that yes, cooler heads would have to prevail, and it would make things, perhaps change things in the ministry. I'm picking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm picking from your submissions the point then that whereas what we hear, who we hear will be coming in as a substantive minister, who is the deputy, Educhum, would exhibit a certain level of a very, if you like, temperate demeanor. We didn't see that in the former minister, Matthew Poku-Prempeh. Yet he got things through. So what I'm trying to get from you is, how do we balance that? You see, there's a certain attitude or demeanor that would drive a certain agenda. But at the end of the day, it appears that the exhibition of that behavior or attitude is what is being used against him in the general public space. You know, when he's being compared with his deputy. How do you see that?
You know, I think I need to anchor this conversation on, say, the same things I said earlier. You know, pushing through a policy like free SHS was not going to be easy. Yeah. And you all saw it at the point Matthew lost his cool sometimes. I mean, I've been in close meetings with him, and then he almost got verbal because when we were telling him that, look, this double track thing, you can stop it one way or the other by bringing in the private sector and all of that. He didn't like it. But you see, this was typical Matthew. And you need minds like that when you want to push certain things through in a certain context. That has been done. There are still lingering issues around whether our education system right now will deliver the middle level manpower that we need. Frankly, I don't see that. In the next 5 years, I don't see that. But something can change. If Odichum comes and he says, look, I think technical education should be given some pride of place. Because we are copying from Germany, that spends almost 40% of its budget on technical education. But we are not doing so. We are doing something around 3 or 4, 5%. And that's not cool. So maybe, well, Educhum comes and says, well, the choppy waters have been navigated already. Now let's look into the proper policy anchoring to ensure that there are synergies being built between the economy and education. And I see those kinds of conversations being had. I see Honorable Educhum, for instance, saying, what about private schools of the poor? They could help us in terms of placements of pupils in public schools that are not properly, properly resourced in terms of human resource and indeed fiscal resources. Is it possible to have a conversation? That conversation is still, should I say, it's still being had. Is there a situation where the management of Ghana Education Service could be looked at again? Can we do better if we did a public-private partnership approach? People may yell and say, you can't give something to the private sector. But this is a man who is likely to look way both situations and say, let's have a conversation. Governance is not just about the public sector, it's also the private sector. So I didn't mean that the demeanor or what I meant essentially about the two personalities is that one obviously was needed at the time when we needed to push through a number of policies. Listen, I couldn't see Educhum, for instance, going after certain headmasters because they said the truth about the poor conditions at free SHS when it started, the sanitary and the accommodation. I don't think Educhum has the political verve to do something like that. But people feared Matthew, not because they respected him, because they felt that you couldn't, and it was a policy that ought to be done. You know what I mean?
Sure. So he was needed at that point to push that through, and he did it. So with that done, we need another person with a different style of, getting things done. Come in, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Unfortunately, I wasn't watching until now, so I don't know because the two gentlemen are wearing masks. I can't tell who they are.
Okay, so it's Mr. Ben Efson and Professor Abdullahi from the African Parliamentary Network, and of course, Mr. Ben Efson.
Professor Abdullahi.
Yes.
Good to see you. I'm sorry, I couldn't make you out.
Great. Now, Franklin, lastly, sure, that's Mr. Ben Efson.
When you are watching from because I can't see it's slower. Ben Efson himself.
That's him. Live and colored.
Oh, my good uncle. Uncle, good to see you. Good morning. I'm very sorry. I've not taken a particular good look at the gentlemen.
Yeah.
But they are two good friends of mine, intellectually and media and everything that they do.
Right.
Good morning.
Sure. Lastly, before you go, let's look at the Attorney Generals and the Ministry of Justice. We hear that Madam Gloria Kufu will be leaving, and in her place would be the deputy, which is Mr. Godfrey Dami. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know why Gloria is leaving, but Gloria, by the way, it's a fairly competent head. But again, the politics of times. It appears the deputy seems to have been able to do the legal politics as well, and he's done that. I've seen him in court a number of times, and is sarcastically good, really, and politically sarcastic and all of that stuff. Even though I think he gets some of his law very, very wrong in terms of human rights, I think what he did with Sal was an aberration on everything that constitutes good conscience. And I think even though he was speaking law, he was talking nonsense, really. I'm sorry, because I'm a Sal native, so I'm sorry I was using the word nonsense, but typically, yes. But look, what's his name again? The Deputy Attorney General.
Mr. Godfrey Dami.
Dami is an interesting gentleman, and I like him thoroughly. I think he's still going to do well, especially because of the things you need to get through, some of the things that challenges that are going to come. But Gloria she should be given some other proper role to play. But Gloria, like every lady does, is much more thoughtful. If you saw her commentary on the Japan and the rest, these were thoughtful, reflective comments, and you need all of that in governance. Unfortunately, it would be sad that Gloria would be leaving office and then someone like Ursula would be retained in power. I mean, that is, I don't get that.
Very well. On that note, I think we can end it here. Thank you very much, Franklin Kujo, President of Imani.
I'll see you, Ben.
Sure. Thank you so much. And we'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we will still go through with the list of ministers that we have assessing their performance in the first term of the government and hazarding guesses as to whether or not they will be coming back. In the studio, we still have Mr. Benefsin and Professor Abdullahi. We'll see you after this break.
Third Eye Care and Vision Center is here with all your eye care solutions. Yes, Third Eye Care is at it again. Are your lenses becoming foggy because of wearing face masks or sitting in air-conditioned spaces? Are your eyes getting sore and tired after using the computer for prolonged periods? Are you struggling with lights from oncoming cars and other vehicles when driving at night? Worry no more. Third Eye Care and Vision Center has all the right solutions for you. We have anti-fog and blue filtering lenses that solves it all. Third Eye Care and Vision Center also stocks all types of lenses, designer frames, sunglasses, and employs very well-trained, qualified, and licensed optometrists to provide all your eye care needs. Locate us at Airport Residential Area, close to the Association International School, opposite Mirage Residence, or Northridge, on the premises of Sunny FM, and close to the Kanda Overhead Bridge. Call us on 054-328-7008 or 026-646-2080. Third Eye Care and Vision Center, your total eye care solution.
Smiles are one of the most important things we have. Globally, 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Pepsodent with maximum cavity protection repairs tiny holes before they become cavities. Because every smile matters.
The next gospel star.
Who wins the ultimate prize of 7,000 cedis and the recording contract at the maiden edition of The Next Gospel Star? Is it going to be Lucy Nkrumah, or Gloria Thompson, or Margaret Bonzi, or Theophilus Eni, or Augusta Jamina, or Rachel Plomega, or Theodora Crantain, or Emmanuel Akimi? The Next Gospel Star Finals comes up this Saturday, 16 January at the Ultra Modern Joe's Place Event Center, West Hill City, New Botiano, Accra. Watch out for a live performance by the evergreen gospel duo, the Tego Sisters. You can watch the live stream of the grand finale of The Next Gospel Star online at CJTV on Facebook and YouTube. To vote for your favorite contestant, dial *365*300# and enter the code of your contestant, or visit thenextgospelstar.com and vote. The Next Gospel Star is supported by Vena Mineral Water and is proudly brought to you by the kind courtesy of CJ Multimedia.
Sunday on Date Rush.
With his pink lips, I don't believe he's single.
If you really study, it looks like she's doing the short hair, so that means it's like you like short girls.
He has too much energy and he's a bit naughty. I don't like a guy like that.
And you know how to cook. I love that. Trust me, I love good food and I would love my man to serve me in bed.
The all-new season of Date Rush shows this Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. The all-new season of Date Rush is proudly brought to you by Rush Energy Drink, Carnival Liqueur, Ernest Ointment, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, and Napa Foods, Everpure Purified Drinking Water, Note Cosmetics, Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture.
16 families, cooking enthusiasts, fun games, and a prize pool of over 100,000 Ghana cedis all in one show. Ongalicious Ghana Cooks Family Battle Edition is finally here. With Onga, even friends can become family. Which family will season their way to the final, and which family will fall on the battlefield? 2 seasoned chefs and a host of celebrated guest judges will sift through finger-licking Ongalicious recipes in their quest to determine the winner of Ongalicious Ghana Cooks Family Battle Edition. Which family walks away with the ultimate cash prize of 20,000 Ghana cedis plus a set of kitchen appliances from Kaiser Kitchenware, which includes a freestanding cooker, a heat extractor, and a refrigerator. Or second prize of 15,000 Ghana cedis plus a Kaiser fridge. Or third prize of 10,000 Ghana cedis plus a Kaiser microwave. Oh, by the way, no one goes home empty-handed. It's the biggest cooking show to hit your screen. Ongalicious Ghana Cooks Family Battle Edition. Do it with your family. Onga, Mama's Helping Hand, Ilili.
Showing on TV3 every Saturday at 4:30 p.m.
Well, welcome back. We're still watching and listening to The Key Points. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we are still looking at the ministers from the first term of the NPP administration led by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. We are trying to see who makes it to the second term of the government. We've so far looked at the senior minister. We've looked at the minister for finance. We'll be looking at the minister for education with the guest studios, but earlier on we had a discussion on the minister for education and other ministries with Mr. Franklin Kujo of Imani. So we'll be looking at that here. And Professor Abdullahi, if we could start with you, the Ministry of Education. Indeed, I indicated earlier that obviously a major part of the government. But before we go on with the education ministry assessment, let me announce that we have Mr. Adams Bona joining us via Zoom. He is a security analyst. Mr. Bona, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Just that your line is a bit faint. So if your technical people can work on it. Sure. I can hear you, but it's not too clear.
Very well. We will try to work on that. But thanks for joining us and welcome. We'll be getting to you shortly. Right. So yes, Professor Abdullahi, Education Ministry, free SHS, flagship, major flagship program of the NPP. In fact, something that this 2020 election was won on the back of the free SHS, and indeed they came into office 2016 still on the promise of the free SHS. And so indeed it was a very important ministry in the first term.
It is a very important ministry. Actually, education is what is going to lead developing countries like ours, to where it wants to be. However, for me, when the education minister was chosen, the first thing I asked myself, what is a medical doctor doing in education? I think that is one of the issues I had with that choice. And I think like Franklin was saying, he was able to push through a very difficult program, which is the free HSS. But of course, we knew the challenges that came, especially with the double track. Now, I think moving forward, once you've been able to push something through, you need to have others that will come and be able to move it beyond a certain point. And I felt that, like Franklin mentioned, the idea of his abrasiveness does not speak well for education. In education, you need to be somebody that can build bridges and bring people of different persuasions together to be able to move the agenda, because you're talking about education, and you as a leader you are setting up an example for most people to follow. So in that aspect, therefore, I believe that he has also done his bit, and it's important that probably they bring somebody else on. But that is my
right. He saw through that policy
Yes.
at some point. Well, how would you assess him on a scale of 1 to 100?
It's kind of difficult. I'm very difficult, as an academic. I'll give you 50.
50,
Yes.
very well. Mr. Epson, your thoughts on the Honorable Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh's performance in the education ministry?
Oh, I think that the unconfirmed news that Edutu will be taking over, it has been welcomed by everybody because of his demeanor. We are dealing with heads of schools, some in their late 50s, early 60s, and Napo, that is Opoku-Prempeh's temperament. You understand? Yes, if we're a doctor, we're a medical officer, we deal with science. Education, are dealing with human beings. We are pushing through.
But medical doctors is dealing with human beings as well. I mean, the practice of human beings.
Yeah, the practice of human beings, but temperament, you know, you want, as a minister, you want this done. I think that one of the things that Akufo-Addo has achieved is, like, if you mention about Ghana's independence, you mention Nkrumah. 50, 100 years down the line, you talk about free education, you mention Akufo-Addo. You understand? So that was a very vital ministry that had to succeed, and it has turned out to be the golden key that opened Akufo-Addo's door to another term. But along the line, his temperament in dealing with issues, he has seen it, and I think that I'll give him a 40.
A 40, okay, very well. But you see, let's interrogate that bit more, because I find it interesting. That balance, anything that requires a certain balance, I find very interesting, because I believe if we're able to get it right, then we are home free. So you're looking at the ability to do, as against a certain demeanor, which obviously may rub people the wrong way. But at the end of the day, that doer gets results.
Why is he not being kept there?
Well, we don't know for sure if he's not going to be kept there.
Well, I mean, I think that maybe I've heard he may be moved on to energy. But you see, this free SHS, it got to a stage that the parent-teacher associations levied fees on the parents. So it wasn't like, when the headmaster suggests something, like the ministry will shut them down. No, this. But then some of them, the more established schools with powerful old boys and girls associations, were able to levy fees and monies, which was even more than that. So it got to a stage that the teachers felt, the headmasters and headmistresses felt they were being bullied. And I believe that this second year is maybe his second term is a term of consolidation. And, we are dealing with headmasters who are like civil servants. Oh. Things will come, and you may have to understand. And I think the Duchum's background, he runs a school in the US and so on. He'll be able to deal with it. Yes, Napo has done his bit. And if he's going to energy, that's another minefield.
Another minefield indeed, exactly. We have also joining us Mr. Peter Pate Anti. He's the Executive Director with the Institute of Education Studies. Can you hear me, Mr. Peter, Auntie? Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Great. Thank you for joining us, and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too, and greetings to your panelists.
Right, good. So we're looking at the Education Ministry now, assessing the minister's performance. Obviously, free SHS was a major issue and a big deal in that ministry, and indeed for the government as a whole. And how would you assess the minister, or former minister for that matter, Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh?
Thank you very much. One, we have to understand the overall mandate of a minister for a ministry. If you look at the constitution, it gives the minister the mandate to be the political head of the ministry, and also he is supposed to lead for policy directions and other things. That is a general mandate that the constitution gives the Minister of Education, so the ministers in general. So the Minister of Education, one, is supposed to promote the objectives of the Ministry of Education, at the same time fulfill the promises made by the party in terms of their education manifesto. Now, if you put this together, then you would say that the former Minister of Education did quite well, and we are in the sector. We've been working with them, and we have studied some of the reforms that have been carried out by the ministry, and we might say that if you talk to anybody in the sector, they will tell you that there are a lot of reforms that have been carried out in the sector, led by the minister, that needs to be commended. And if you are able to go by the same level, we are likely to transform our education to a different level. We have to understand that the free SHS was a very difficult policy, especially trying to implement it at the first year of the government tenure. It was a very difficult policy. So any minister that is able to push this through despite the challenges, and at this point I have to state that we have to separate the policy from its implementation. So the idea is there. If you look at the idea and you analyze the idea, then you would realize whether the idea is good or not. So the idea of providing free education for our senior high schools, it's a fantastic idea that we have to applaud anybody who saw to the implementation of that particular policy. And we have to be frank about that. Now, although the implementation came with certain difficulties that we all know, we still have to assess the policy by its thematic areas, something that we at the Institute of Education have done. So when they were implementing the policy, they told us that the policy is supposed to create access, it is supposed to bring equity, and it's supposed to promote quality. So any analysis of the policy should be based on these three key areas that the policy hinges on. And we have to also look at that. And you ask yourself, have they been able to achieve that? To a large extent, yes. We have assets being created, we have equity in one way or the other. Although in terms of the financing, there is a problem there. But in terms of equity for the vulnerable, assessing kind of quality education and all that, gender parity ratio now is almost 1-to-1. So there's the equity principle has also been reached, although when it comes to financing, they did not implement it based on the equity principle. They implemented it based on the equality principle. And that is why some of us keep saying that you cannot give to people who already have. And if you want to make the policy very great, then you will need to review that particular bit of it and still apply the equity principle to the financial aspect of the policy. And then you look at quality. Yes, we can say that there's been challenges here and there, but that is where the double track comes in. And I must say that some of us, we have a very different view about the double track. It was a fantastic idea. If you have studied the literature and you look at when multi-track system have been applied in schools, you would see that it is just a stop in the gap measure, something that you do when you have gotten to a stage in your, let's say, education system where the enrollment is increasing and you cannot within the short period of time improve your infrastructure. You resort to double track. And that is what was done. Although the policy, as I always say, was good, the implementation became a little bit challenging, and that is why parents and other people started complaining about it. So if you are looking at the policies that he initiated or he headed to bring to bear, you might say that he's done extremely well. Another thing we don't look at is the legal issues in terms of taking bills to Parliament. Ministers are supposed to also initiate that. If you look at the education sector, a lot of bills were pushed through to Parliament, although some of them were controversial, the Public University Bill, but they were able to pass the Complementary Education Agency Bill. I think that is now law. The pre-tertiary bill was also put to Parliament. I don't know the state of it now. The research bill was also there. So in terms of the legislation bit of it too, he was able to initiate some of these things that all supposed to help shape the education structure of this country. So we would have
right.
to...
now you say he did extremely well. You say he did extremely well. I would want to push you further to give a specific figure to it on a scale of 1 to 100. What would that represent? Extremely well. What would that represent on that scale, 1 to 100?
I didn't get the question.
I'm saying you said he's done extremely well. I would want to push it further for you to give a figure. So give a figure on the scale of 1 to 100. How would you rate him?
That would be very difficult for me to put a figure on it. I must say that I've heard your panelists talk about his personality. And I think that
I'm asking you independently. Assess him. Why make reference to the panelists? Yes. So, what is your percentage? Extremely well. At least you have given some qualification.
For him being the head of the ministry, any success that was chalked by the ministry goes to him. I'll give him 70%.
Very well, 70%. I think we can end it here, Mr. Peter Pate Anti. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the performance of the Education Minister in the first term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo-led government. Thank you very much. He is the Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies. I return to the panelists in studio to conclude with the education sector. Yeah, I believe, Mr. Epson, you were making a point, or you concluded? Were you making a point before I went on to Mr.
No,
Peter?
I mean, asking people to judge, then they see how academics, when they are marking scheme, they have difficulties.
At least academics have a marking scheme, right? That helps.
Yeah.
That helps with that. So, any concluding remarks on the education sector?
I was saying that you can be competent, but that doesn't mean you should be nasty. I think it's important to understand that leadership is being able to balance both, whereby you are competent, but at the same time to be able to bring your people along, and indeed your constituency.
Right.
And I think that is what should be.
But it's interesting with this ministry. You know, the minister was awarded by the University Teachers Association of Ghana in 2019, UTAG. And his award they awarded him for his outstanding performance in dealing with crisis that confronted the ministry. So there is some recognition of how he deals with crisis situations.
Yes.
You see, so again, then you're looking at the allegations of arrogance and being that.
You see,
that
I mean, one of the things that I'm sure many people would have seen is when there is fire within, Napo goes there, yes, maybe because of his background, he doesn't seem to be, he gets irritated and angry that the solution is not done. He wants things to put in place. You know, in medicine, you do this. Edichum understands the problem, and from his background, he's able to solve it. He's able to solve it without the anger associated, you know, and you are dealing with teachers, you are dealing with teacher unions, and I think that the temperament was the problem people were having in solution of the issues.
Right.
You know, I'm sure from his background, he expects that this should follow this. He doesn't take kindly to things
being dragged and all of that. Very well. So clearly different approaches to solving issues here, and that's an interesting area. But well, thanks for your comments on that. I think we'll be moving on next to look at security generally. When you're looking at security, the ministries in focus would be the Interior Ministry that was led by or headed by Mr. Ambrose Derry. There's also the National Security Ministry by Mr. Albert Kandapa. There's also Defense, Mr. Dominic Nitiwul, and then there's Mr. Brian Champon, Minister of State at the Ministry of the Interior. And on security, we'll turn quickly to Mr. Adam Bona, who is joined us via Zoom. Mr. Bona, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Bona, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. I hope you can hear me loud and clear now.
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. So let's look at these 4 ministries or, areas as put under one area of security. And let's see how you think these particular areas have performed. If we take the Interior Ministry, for instance, what do you make of their performance, looking at how things went in terms of internal security, among other things? Let's hear you on that.
Okay. Good morning, and can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please, carry on.
Can you hear me, Abner?
Yes, I can. Please go on.
Good morning to my good friend. Good morning to Uncle Ben and Prof. Happy New Year to both of you, and Happy New Year to yourself, Abner, and viewers.
Thank you.
Yes, with regards to the security sector, anyone who understands how the security sector works, it's always important to, and I believe that last year, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, 2017, around this time, the president, one of the very first appointments he did was the Minister of National Security, because one would say it is always important to, in everything you do, to ensure that the people are safe. You put in mechanisms to ensure that people are safe. And so I would say 2021, January, how far have we come with regards to our security? One was that it's been a bit checky, but if we have to do a quick assessment of all of them, I might have to start with Honorable Ambrose Derry, vis-a-vis what's his name, Honorable Brian Achampong. If you take somebody like Honorable Ambrose Derry, he's been there since 2017, and one would say, if you ask me to rate him, or if you ask me to do an assessment of him, some quick thematic areas, you want to talk about interpersonal relationship with officers at large and probably, the agencies. You want to also talk about assertiveness. How was he able to ensure that
Okay, so we're having some technical challenges there, but I will carry on the conversation here with my guest in studio, Mr. Benefson and Professor Abdullah. We'll try and get back to Mr. Bona. But looking at security or the Interior Ministry, Mr. Bona, we'll try to, reconnect. We'll try to reconnect. It's very bad. So, some would say right from day one, we saw issues with political party vigilantism. Then there was the kidnapping issues, Takrady girls issues, the Canadian girls came in. Then, of course, the Ayawaso West by-election also came in and threw everything haywire, and there was a whole lot of issues around that. The commission set up, white paper issued, and a whole lot of issues. How do you look at, the performance of security, particularly zooming in on the Interior Ministry now headed by Mr. Ambrose Derry?
I think that the security architecture in Akufo-Addo's first term has been above average. When we're talking about kidnappings and so on, we are talking about the ability of the police to crack these things. It took time, but they achieved it. I think that, from what I'm hearing, I think that it's good that he's maintaining the architecture of maintaining Kandapa as Minister of Security, Dominic Nitiwul as Minister of Defense, Derry as Minister of Interior, because collectively they have been able to take the country through some slippery areas, like the homeland security, having to deal with it. And when the president is going into his final year, once the performance of the security is above average, it is dangerous to tamper with it. You know, we remember President Kufuor in his even the last year, his changing of the security setup had an impact which affected the MPP's chances in 2008. So I believe that yes, they performed above average. You know, I'll give them about 60 collectively, the security architecture, because some of the things were so slippery that cannot be discussed. You know, security matters cannot be discussed openly. Sure. But I think that from what I know and how they performed, I'll give them about 60. About 60 for that whole architecture. Yeah, the security architecture. That's fine. You know, I've been giving most of the ministers 40-40. So 60 is a big deal. Yes, my 60 is big. Very well. Now, Prof, Mr. Epson indicates that yes, you know, the subject of security is one that, you know, we don't necessarily discuss openly. But if there was anything that put that issue to the fore and helped citizens follow, I believe it was the by-elections of the Ayawaso West woman, which led to the setting up of the commission. So indeed, it was the commission of inquiry that was set up that opened up that conversation, and it was televised. So we all heard. And I think one thing stuck out significantly in the fact that it was that we had an issue with that architecture of our security setup. Talking about the Interior Ministry, Defense, there was a National Security, and then there's a Minister of State at the Ministry of Interior, and a whole lot. In fact, at that time, Mr. Brane Champo wasn't the Minister of State at the Ministry of Interior. I think he was at the Ministry of National Security. Yeah. Right. And so it opened up that discussion as to how, you know, that whole system is put together and how it impacts on efficiency and effectiveness and all of that. What do you make?
First of all, I'm not a security expert like Mr. Bona, but one of the things I have to say...
We are trying to reach him, so definitely we'll
one of the things I have to say is this: Mr. Ambrose Derry is a very excellent minister. He's done very well. I think the problem I have, if you look at the time of Chief S.D. Dombo, who was the Interior Minister, I think what I think should happen is that you can have your security apparatus, the mandates divided. I think, for example, when you talked about Ayawaso, it should have been really under the Interior Minister. But Andrew Derry himself says he didn't know about, the operation. So which means somebody somewhere was trying to assert some power that they didn't have. And I also felt that Mr. Kandapa's ministry should focus more on the external threats to the country, with Al-Qaeda and in the Sahara and others up in Burkina Faso and Niger and other areas. Those are important things. So that with that focus, then the resources will be well directed, whereas the Interior Ministry focuses on everything that has to do with security internally. Then Brane Champo, I don't know, what is his role in the security architecture? See, now, if you go to the United States, like the BNI, the FBI deals with all those issues that are important in the internal United States. And of course, it comes under, what did they have a new name for it now? Yeah.
The BNI?
I'm talking about the United States. Yeah, Homeland Security.
Okay, very well, yeah.
So I think that is where we need to also look at all these important things to make sure that we align specific roles to these security architecture. And of course, the military, the minister has created a few issues that needs to be looked at.
I will come to you for that issue in respect of the Ministry of Defense, but let's quickly cross over to Mr. Adam Bona, who's joining us now via telephone because we're having challenges with the Zoom. Mr. Bona, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great, thank you for your time. So yes, we were speaking to the issues about security in the first term of the government, and you were making a submission, so if you could carry on for us, please. But I would now want to focus your submission, or I want you to focus your submission.
There's a lot of echo.
Can you hear me? If you could kindly lower the volume of your television. I think that would help. I think we're getting the feedback from there. Is it better?
Yeah, it's better, but I think one of the audios would have to be turned off.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So let's go on. So I'm saying that, yes, I'd want you to focus now on the architecture of our security apparatus, particularly as it came out from the Commission of Inquiry's work in respect of the Ayawaso by-election, and the fact that there were a whole lot of issues around the architecture or the apparatus, lack of coordination, and those command and control issues. If you could speak to those issues for us, please.
Okay, so with regards to the security architecture as was recommended or as was put out by the Emil Short's Commission's report, one would say probably if the leadership of the country, i.e. the Commander-in-Chief, who probably it is his right, according to the Constitution, to have accepted or as he did, decide to do otherwise with some of the recommendations. If he had accepted all of them, or about 90% of them, probably that would have streamlined, the entire security architecture. We would have seen one of the greatest reforms in the security sector, probably in the last 100 years, in this country. Pre-colonial and post-colonial, call it Gold Coast Ghana. And so as far as I'm concerned, some of the recommendations had to do with the fact that we were supposed to have,
but if you could please speak up a bit, we can hardly hear you.
Established, if possible. The leadership of the country, i.e. the president, actually thought that it was not necessary because we had a certain institution called SHRAJ that is supposed to be superintending over some of these things. But you and I and viewers and your panelists would admit that SHRAJ, yes, is doing its best, but SHRAJ, as we see it, under-resourced, don't have the requisite resources to do what is expected. And the police administration itself has what is called the PIPS, which is the complaints unit. But the truth is that how many citizens are able to go and report a police officer who has committed a crime? Few would do that. And so one would have thought that that recommendation would have helped streamline, the way the police interact with citizens. The other thing that also came out had to do with, that institution called national security. Some of us have recommended that the national security is usually out of bounds. The national security performs taxes that probably by law they are not supposed to be performing. As we speak, you have the national security officers who sometimes carry rifles, national security officers who are performing the functions of internal security organizations like the police and immigration and the rest. And so as far as I'm concerned, if this was adhered to, probably some of the, if you look at, even though that incident or that case is in court, the case that involves the gentleman called Kola from the Odododio constituency, according to reports, he is an officer from the national security, but as to how he was given a firearm, whether he carried the firearm, whether he shot that bullet that hit the guy, I'm sure the court will determine that. And we had them before elections. We had some national security officers who pounced on one military officer and beat him to pulp, or attempted to beat him of the sort, yes. And this became a big issue to the extent that the president had to speak about it. And so, by and large, the national security, some of us have said, has actually outlived its usefulness in the current dispensation we find ourselves, unless it is restructured to, fall in line with what, as a democracy, where we are the forward march towards ensuring that this country is secure. Their mandate, literally, is to probably is to monitor, collect data, analyze data, and refer when they deem it fit to the relevant agency, if it's the military, if it's the police, if it's the immigration, the fire service, so that they deal with it. But unfortunately, The national security has now become kind of a paramilitary organization. So you'll find them arresting people, intimidating people, and doing things that by law, the law does not permit them to do. But unfortunately, who do you report to? And so the Commission's report, if it had called it as a country, the President had accepted the Commission's report in its entirety, or even 90% of it, I'm telling you that would have seen one of the greatest reforms within our security sector. But, well, the President decided otherwise, and so our citizens, we can only continue to talk about it and hope that the things that happened between 2017 2020, we don't see them going forward. So you have an institution like the Ministry of the Interior, where there is some ambiguity, where we seem to have two ministers. You have one minister who is a minister of state at the Interior Ministry, and you have the Interior Minister. When that happens, you are going to have a lot of anomalies. Who is who? No one knows. And if you know, anyone who understands the security architecture when it comes to happenings, I will tell you that those who overthrew Kwame Nkrumah's government had to do with the defense and interior did that. And so if you are not careful and you don't put the right people within this other institutions, then you are only calling for trouble. And so one of the recommendations some of us have put forward is that let's, in 2021 onwards, let's, take away that issue of ambiguity within the Interior Ministry. When a Champa was sent there, some of the recommendations some of us have put out is that taking from the Interior Ministry, if you, the President, he has the sole prerogative to appoint and disappoint his ministers. If you want him to continue to be a minister, send him somewhere that probably he would have nothing to do with security.
Very well. Now,
somewhere that probably he might have to learn the rudiment of working with people. Once these things are done, I believe the security sector would be, already it's a very hot sector. It's a very hot, and at the moment, if you are not very careful, not too organized, if you ask me. And so the President has a lot to do moving forward. Abner.
Very well. Now let's look at the former ministers for Interior, Defense and National Security. So you look at Mr. Ambrose Derry, you look at Mr. Dominic Nitiwul and Mr. Albert Kandapa. What would you say if these ministers were being maintained in their positions?
Well, I would start with Mr. Albert Kandapa, because it is his ministry that is supposed to have been doing what is expected and distributing information or intel to the various agencies. But unfortunately, repeatedly I have put forward that ministry, some of us had a lot of expectations. So it has.
Would you recommend that he's maintained? And that's you.
Every security in every country or in every community is its intelligence, and so we are a soulless, if you want me to put it that way, a soulless country when it comes to security. The country seems to have security, but that security doesn't have a soul. It is largely because that ministry headed by Mr. Kandapa, Albert Kandapa, is a very fine gentleman. But I think that respectfully, either he's not been able to find his bearings, he hasn't been assertive, or he has not been able to coordinate as the law or the policy guiding whatever what they are supposed to do says. And so you would realize that national security, in most often than not, you will see them performing functions that probably they are not supposed to be performing. So if you ask me, I would ask respectfully the President of the Republic to scrap the office of the National Security Minister, scrap it entirely. Let's go back to status quo. The old arrangement where the national security is headed by a coordinator, and that coordinator is supposed to be reporting directly to the President.
Very well. What about the Minister for Interior and Defense?
For those who don't know, the coordinator, his work largely is to ensure that he reports to the President every day on happenings of he briefed the president every day on happenings of this country. And if Ayawa's West Wagon incident is anything to go by, then I would say that the Mikandapa and the people there should be removed. Let's get the coordinators to occupy that seat to do the work. Because if you listen to the president, that morning after the Ayawa's West Wagon Gohaha, he did say there was an isolated security incident at Ayawa's West Wagon. And, on hindsight, one would say that it cannot be an isolated when a whole presidential commission is put together to investigate what happened. It means that somebody misadvised the president, but unfortunately, those people are still at post. And so, I would say, even though Albert Kandapa is a fine gentleman, cool-headed, would usually not want to get into trouble most often, I think that respectfully he should retire or send him somewhere, let him go to one of the boards, but not, the National Security Ministry. Then when you come to, what do you say, the Interior
and then Defense. What do you make? Yes.
That's another area that some of us would say we have been monitoring keenly, with open eyes, collecting a lot of data remotely from, this ministry, just like we do with the others. Some of us raised issues when the confusion that ensued at National Security and Diana Champo was sent there, that it wasn't going to do us any good, because Interior Ministry, it has to be a ministry without any ambiguity, without any anomaly. There has to be a ministry where you know who you are reporting to. It should be a ministry where you have a minister, one minister and deputies, not a minister and something that looks like another minister. Once you do that in the security sector, largely people who deal with firearms, you are going to throw the country into chaos. And so if you look at Ambrose Derry and what he has done over the years, I would say without any shred of doubt in my mind that he has done what he has to do. Probably under him, it is, from data which is available to you go, I'm sure we can collect all this from the various agencies, right from fire service. They've gotten a lot of retooling so that as we speak, we now have a timetable. We now have a timetable procured probably for the fire service. The last procurement we had before the recent one happened under the good old Professor Atamils, and the timetable could only do up to 5 floors. It meant that if you were on the 6th floor of any building and there was fire, the fire service couldn't have gotten to you. Chances are that you would perish. But now we have a timetable and a hydraulic timetable, 2 of them or more than 2. I think about 2. I start to remember about 2. That can do more than 10 floors, which to me is good. Under, Ambrose Derry, there is also PPEs. In the past, I knew that the fire service officers, I'm sure, the PRO Oko is listening. The PPEs for fire service officers, when I say PPEs not for COVID, but PPEs, the fire retardant, gear, so that when there's fire, they can go into the fire with, fire burning and they don't get burnt.
Right, Ms. Anambona, we need to end it, but before that, I would need you to address us on the Defense Ministry. So please, Ms. Abona. Thank you. That's for the Interior Ministry. Can we please move on to the Defense Ministry now?
One or 2 issues that one would have wished that would have been resolved in a manner that would help all of us. I would say, if you ask me to rate him, I would give him probably 8 out of 10. If that is anything to go by, 8 out of 10 because he has been effective, building bridges and working cordially. Because you need somebody who should be cool-headed to manage a big ministry in a very sensitive ministry such as what's the name, the Interior Ministry.
Very well.
And and then you go to the other one, Defense.
Yes, Defense.
Yes.
We need to be wrapping up, so please, Defense, do that in 30 seconds. Would you recommend
Dominic
Nitiwul to be maintained as Defense Minister?
yes, Dominic Mitchell should be maintained. Very fine young man. He has done what is expected of him. I think he's the youngest so far, and more since, post-independence, the youngest so far to head that ministry. Under him, there's been massive retooling of the military. Massive, even though there's been some issues that people have raised. But I would say that if you ask me to score him, I would equally score him, 8 out of 10. Nitu has done probably,
very well.
As a young man, he's done so well. He's cool, calm, collected.
Thank you.
Once a while, when you need information, you call him, you get it. So he's somebody I think should be maintained as well, if the president deems it fit.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Afros has done well.
Mr. Adam Bona, I think we can end it here. That is Mr. Adam Bona. He's a security analyst, and we were having a conversation around the security apparatus, which comprises the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of National Security. We'll be taking a break at this point. When we come back, we turn our attention to the Ministry of Health and other ministries as well. See you after the break.
You start off the year by stepping up with DSTV.
Things are about to get cray-cray.
Whoa, okay.
And that's important because
DSTV, they come give you more of the entertainment you and your family they like. So fasten your seatbelt. As DSTV take you go higher with more epic live soccer, exciting local drama, and best kids shows.
That's a lot. Cool.
My people, all you for do be say, starting from 14th January to 31st March, upgrade your current DSTV package to the next one, and DSTV will bump you up to the one above that at no extra cost. It be that simple.
What?
Come on.
Oh, exciting. Okay.
For example, let's say you have family. All you have to do is pay for Compact, and DSTV will give you Compact Plus at no extra cost.
This is a lot.
Yeah. Follow us with the hashtag DSTV Step Up for more, or call us on 0302 740 540. Terms and conditions apply.
The assurance that absolutely none can compare. The peace of mind that nothing could ever be better. The joy that comes with being free to be who you are. And the knowledge that where we're from can guide us to where we're going. Key, a tradition of smiles, a future that's bright. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Another season of TV3 Talented Kids is here. Season 11 was fun. Season 12 will be super exciting. Are you ready? If you're aged 7, 12 and can sing, dance, play an instrument, draw, act, DJ, or have any TV-friendly talent, then it's time to audition for Season 12 of Talented Kids. Audition dates and information are as follows. 18 to 19 January, Takrady inside Connect FM. 21st to 22nd January, Kumasi inside Akuma FM. 24th to 25th January, Accra inside TV3 at Desawe Kanda. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Got the talent? Come flaunt it for the chance to be part of Season 12 of Talented Kids. Also, if you know any child star you think should be on the show, send a video of him or her displaying his or her talent to us via WhatsApp on 054-244-8297 and we will put them on. Talented Kids, free to play. TV3, best in news, best in entertainment.
For every single individual or every single female, your menstrual cycle.
I have too much pain. So sometimes I ask my mother that, is that what every girl goes through? Because it's too much for me. I can't take it.
Your pain is what you say it is.
Exactly.
So if your pain is on the level of 10, you are the one feeling the pain.
Because I want to be,
I will be found.
From deliberate mentorship of adolescent girls produces a responsible generation. That is why Because I Want to Be is brought to you by UNFPA, Rebecca Foundation, Canadian Embassy, Merck Foundation. Because I Want to Be shows Sundays at 1 p.m. on TV3. This Sunday on Date Rush.
With his pink lips, I don't believe he's single.
If you really stay there, it looks like she's even the short hair, so that means it's like you like short girls.
He has too much energy and he's a bit naughty. I don't like a guy like that.
And you know how to cook. I love that. Trust me, I love good food and I would love my man to serve me in bed.
The all-new season of Date Rush shows this Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. The all-new season of Date Rush is proudly brought to you by Rush Energy Drink, Carnival Liqueur, Ernest Ointment, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, and Napa Foods, Everpure Purified Drinking Water, Note Cosmetics, Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture.
Ghana, we got a new episode of Family Feud. Now trust me, your man Steve Harvey, when I say you don't want to miss this. One of my sons' name is Jason.
Hi, Dad.
Wow. Yeah. Who the hell drinking liquor at the ceremony for the babies?
That's crazy.
Ain't that at a church?
I was praying, Steve.
Amen again. Who you mad at? I'm trying to work with you. Thank you so much.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 8 p.m. and repeat on Thursdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Family Feud is brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
Vodafone.
The Lady Circle.
Your Saturday evenings are never the same when four intelligent ladies are on your screens talking about everything that has to do with women as we get into honest conversations, giveaways, and fun games.
Hi guys, this is Shatamishi.
Sissy Naso, Zinel Zu. I'm Juliet Ibrahim.
This is The Lady Circle.
Join the host of The Lady Circle. Keep watching The Lady Circle. The Lady Circle.
Keep watching The Lady Circle this and every Saturday live on TV3.
Let's get interactive on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hashtag The Lady Circle.
The Lady Circle, every Saturday, 6 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by
Yaz Sanitary Pad.
Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to The Key Points. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We are going on with the look at the performance of ministers in the first term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration and looking into the crystal ball to see who makes it to the second term of the government. In the studio with me, we have Mr. Benefson Polster and Managing Editor of the Daily Dispatch. And also we have Professor David Abdullahi. He is a Senior Advisor with the African Parliamentary Network. And intermittently, we've been speaking to resource persons on Zoom on various thematic areas as we go along with our analysis. Next, we're turning our attention to the Ministry for Trade and Industry, and that was headed by Mr. Alan Shrek-Martin. The Trade Ministry, or the Ministry for Trade and Industry, also was another key ministry in the first term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government, obviously because of the One District, One Factory program, among other things that were, earmarked for implementation as well. Professor Abdullahi, start us off with this ministry. With your thoughts on it? One District, One Factory, industrialization agenda. Recently, we had talks of the automobile industry coming in with the VW assembling plants and all of that. How do you think this ministry has fared, particularly the minister?
First, I know Alan very well. We work together at UNECA, United Nations Economic Forum for Africa, the Africa Trade Policy Center. He's competent. He actually even ran to be the head of the WTO.
Right. So
he's a competent person, and he knows what he's doing. And also, if you look at the importance of this ministry, if you look at most countries now, their focus is on economic diplomacy, where the idea is to be able to bring in a lot of investment or industries, and also to focus on external trade. I think he has done so well. I think with the issue of the implementation of the one district, one factory, there had been challenges. And I think if it is going to be maintained, it needs to be relooked. But I think it shouldn't be only the trade ministry that should look at that. For example, we know the issues with the dams. It was reported in the north that during the Harmattan time, most of the dams were dried up.
Sure.
For me as an economist, the other thing I was looking at is if you are going to have a factory in a particular area, you are going to look at the importance of how that factory can really contribute to the growth and development of the sector. Issues of market, issues of resources, and all those things are important, rather than just locating an industry somewhere because it has to be located there for political expediency. But apart from those challenges, I think Alan is a competent minister, and he knows what he's doing. I don't know whether he will still be maintaining that ministry, but I think his skills could be used elsewhere because he's an economist. And I think, having said that, it is a very important ministry that has to do with our growth and development, and it should be really looked at, and it should be given stretch goals to achieve, not just the one district, one factory.
Right. Before we interrogate other areas further, your score. I know you say you know him. You've
Yes,
made that disclosure. That's fine, but
yes, I disclose that because I think he's hardworking and competent. Apart from a few issues that he has, also I think I'll give him 75. You know, and I think it's
that's a pass mark. I think that's good. Now, before I go to Mr. Efton, you talked about the fact that yes, it needs to be re-looked at. And Professor Abdullahi, I'm still yes, it needs to be re-looked at, and you know, a number of considerations brought in. You talked about the fact that there needs to be some expediency around the locations of the factories. So do you think that it is still feasible to do one district or one factory per district? I mean, if a particular district doesn't have certain resources that would necessarily feed a factory or an industry, why do you need to at all costs set up a factory there?
That's why I said it should not be located for political expediency reasons. Maybe the name can be one district, one factory, but the focus should not be one district, one factory. The focus should look at where really specific areas are very strong in specific industries, and then they can be expanded or help to sustain, even when the government support is not there. I think that is the way it should be looked at. It shouldn't, the name can be maintained. I think names are, but like
implementation.
Like your station is called TV3. I mean, there are more than 3 TV stations. But I think the implementation and the relook at how to and where to locate factories or industries must change.
Right, very well. Ms. Efton, your thoughts on this ministry and the minister?
Well, I think that first it will be erroneous to judge Alan Chimati's performance based on one district, one factory, because one district, one factory is being taken out of the Ministry of Industries. But having said, I think that the concept of one district, one factory, one of the disappointments is that years ago I used to do some work for some agricultural magazines. I'm sure as a woman you will know that at sometimes tomatoes get very scarce and importation of tomatoes come from Burkina Faso. I was expecting that one of the first few factories that will be done will be at Akumadan and then the Upper East, because when these tomato farmers get to the farms, they go in, there's a glut. People come from Accra, pay them peanuts. So the next farming season, they shift to other crops. I think that in concept, like Ekumfi has been good. This is one of the few success stories. And I think that if they are able to interlink it, the industry and agric, they'll be able to take advantage of seasons, products that have gluts. you can put up a factory there so that during the glass season they can can it and the farmers will still be in it. Because for a farmer, if the last season tomatoes get spoiled and people come from Accra and you beg them to buy, it will be very foolish on the farmer's part to go back to the same crop. So I think that the idea is good, but there must be linkages with agri industry and finance to be able to make sure that they try and can the excesses to provide a glut during the next farming season. And I think that he's done well. Like I said, this year is Akufo-Addo's test. He's exiting, but people who vote in 2024 will vote on what he has done. So he has the honors to try. And I think that Alan has done well. I'll give him a 60.
A 60, okay. So 75 and 60 in there. In that ministry, at least, when we're looking at the perception out there as well.
Pardon?
I'm saying, looking at the Trade and Industry Ministry, in terms of scandals, there was one, the very first, I think one of the first to break in the government, which had to do with the cash for seats scandal. Do you think it impacted anyway on the ministry in the subsequent years?
Oh, I think that, as I say, it's one of those scandals. Along the line, there wasn't enough evidence to be able to pin people at the ministry down.
There was a parliamentary probe,
which
ended in a very ridiculous
and this is one of the
situation
things that those who voted in 2016 for Akufo-Addo in his quest to try fight corruption, to try and make sure that investigations go to conclusions, those who voted for Akufo-Addo on this matter, 2020, I'm sure they didn't vote for him because they think that along the line there are a lot of on businesses which have not been concluded with parliamentary probe, then it leaves hanging, it goes to this place. And I'm sure that he will take cognizance and maybe this time try and focus and tie ends to scandals which come up at the various ministries.
Very well. Would you recommend him to be maintained?
Yes, yes. I think that being the core, one of the vehicles that government would like to use to eradicate poverty, I think that he should continue where he is.
Right. Professor Abdullah, you gave him 75. Would that mean,
technically he's competent? And I think initially the scandal, like anything else in Ghana, bubbled up a little bit, but died down. And I didn't think it had an impact on his performance as such. However, I think yes, he should be maintained, but I think he should be looked at in the new focus of business in the global environment, which is moving to knowledge industries, which is moving to areas of digitization and others, where there should be a focus from the part of the trade ministry to be able to attract those kind of industries. And those are the industries that really create a lot of wealth for a lot of countries.
Very well. So you recommend that the former trade minister, Mr. Alan Kyerematen, is maintained. Very well. Let's move on next to look at the energy ministry. The energy ministry. Yeah. We had, it started out with Mr. Boakye Jako. Then he was, kicked out by reason of a scandal. Then came in Mr. John Peter Amewu. Going into the elections, the NPP in 2016 had talked about the fact that Dumso had caused a lot of mayhem and they would come in to deal with Dumso. And so coming into government, that was one major thing they had to deal with, Dumso. And also making power stable at reduced tariffs or at reasonable prices, and then many other things that came in their manifesto. We can be looking at them one after the other, but generally, Dumso was the big deal. Mr. Epson, how has that been dealt with in your assessment of?
If what I'm hearing is true, that Amewu might be moving to railway development and Matipuku Prempe might be going to energy. Yes, the government might have. You see, one of the interesting things, Abna, is that at the time the NDC left power in 2016, they had solved to a large extent the energy problems. But the problems created by, you see, there is doomsday and there's power cut. If there is a timetable for light off, you are leaving the house, you know that at 6, the power will go off to 6, you put off your equipment. But doomsday is when there's the unplanned cutoffs. It spoils machines, it spoils fridges. So by the time in 2016 that they may have regularized the power cut, people's equipment had been spoiled, people had lost their jobs. And I think that the energy ministry has been a place where it seems to be a bit prone to scandals because there's a lot of money there. I think that the president last term, one of the challenges presidents on their last term face is that after their second year, they become weakened because the government in power, especially if you're on your second term, you are exiting and people's focus is going to be on the one who's likely to take over and so on. Amewu did his bit. There are still a few lingering PDS and so on. I hope that when Apo goes there, he'll be a bit more tolerant. Otherwise, he may have to leave very soon.
How would you rate Mr. Amewu? How would you rate him?
Oh, I'll give him a 50.
A 50?
Yeah.
Okay, very well. Professor Abdullah, your thoughts on the energy ministry?
I think, like Mr. Efton said, by the time the MPP came in, most of the power challenges like Dunso were solved by the NDC. And like he said, there were some lingering issues that still maintained. Where I did have challenges is the PDS, and it was under his watch, and also the handling of miscellaneous, where the Ameri deal
yes,
came in, and I think the PDS
was supposed to have been a revised one.
Could have been handled very well, and as a minister, it is his responsibility whether he likes it or not. So yes, I didn't see any major changes whilst he was at the energy ministry. So he was more of just managing what he came and met, and in that aspect, I'll give him a 50. A 50
as well.
Yes.
Very well. That's quite interesting. And then we'll go to roads next. Roads. Road.
Okay.
R-O-A-D. Roads.
Okay.
And that's Mr. Akwesi Amoakwata. He's the minister, or the former minister for roads. I mean, roads has been an issue in Ghana. I believe was it 2019 was declared, or was it 2020, sorry, that was declared a year of roads. Whether or not it lived up to that expectation, well, the jury is out there. But we do know that COVID-19 came in and a whole lot of issues came in with finances and a whole lot of things. But roads remain an issue. How well do you think the ministry did with roads? That's a big sigh.
Yes, I like his enthusiasm.
You like his?
His enthusiasm.
Okay.
Somebody can make you carry a load. The load, Abna, will be very heavy. But the way he will help you carry it, you will not feel the weight. Roads are linkages to people. And some of the, pictures I've had to carry in my paper, people think I'm insensitive. Not that I'm insensitive, but it's to bring to the fore the way the people's lives can be improved if even the roads are made motorable. And this is what I think that Mr. Marquardt sought to do. And to a large extent, he did well. And I'm happy that Akufo-Addo, in his speech, after being inaugurated and sworn in, said this year too will be a year of
growth
fruits.
continued.
Because, for example, you have plenty of areas. The roads are so bad that cars don't even commute. That if dead bodies are being carried, the Okada driver, the dead body is put at the back of the Okada driver, and the relative sits behind the dead body. It's you know, this is pardon to our viewers who may be having breakfast or stuff, but I'm just giving them the graphic situation that if not every area will need a tarred road, but if they are made motorable, apart from these social issues, I believe that food prices too will come down. Because somebody charges you, if your food is by the roadside, the person knows the road is so bad, and from his experience, if he goes on that trip, by the time he comes back, he has to spend X amount in repairing the car. The trip he goes on, he will charge. So most of the farmers, they will tell you they leave the foodstuffs by the roadside to rot. Because if I'm going to sell this, let's say I'll get about 800 cedis, and the driver is charging me 600, 700, I might as well let it rot there. So I'm hoping that Akufo-Addo will keep his promise. Because if he doesn't, his party will suffer in 2024. Ghanaians have shown that they can decipher and teach you a lesson. So then I hope that he will just take it. The man is enthusiastic, he's hardworking, and I'll give him a 55.
A 55%, very well.
You know, I'm very stingy with my marks. So
I know.
Yes.
So he should be happy with the 55 then. Professor Abdullah, your thoughts on the road sector?
Abina, roads are very important to the economic development of any developing country. First, it reduces the cost of doing business. You know, transportation costs is reduced. Apart from that, roads link people. It facilitates movement and brings about cultural and other exchanges. The road system in Ghana is bad. It's very bad. I mean, no two ways about it. Now, if you go to other countries, if you don't have the resources, you give it out on concession. Maybe 30 years, the contractor builds it, takes tolls. When it gets to that time, it reverts back to the government. But the government cannot do it all. It needs to look at other ways of making sure that our roads are built. I don't know about you, but when I drive and I enter a pothole, I get some squeeze in my stomach. And in many cases, it creates a lot of accidents.
Sure.
And I think it's important. Now, coming to the road ministry, yes, they've done their part, but they can do better. I think if the focus was not only at the latter end in 2020 on roads, and they had started a little bit earlier, little by little, by the time they got to 2020, at least something would have been done. So to look at the road minister, yes, he has the enthusiasm, but enthusiasm without resources and the ability to implement sustainable and achievable goals, to me, doesn't add too much.
How would you score him?
I would score him 45.
Okay.
I don't think much has been done. If you're like me and you travel up north and to other parts of, you would see what really roads. You know, there are some places you can't even, you know, and you saw the Ghanaian populace, most of them were complaining that they wouldn't vote if they don't have roads, and when it rains, it's terrible. So I think the government should really look at it, and they should really take a closer look at it. If they don't have the resources, like I said, put it out on concession. Let those who have the money build it. That's what most other developing countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and others have done.
Right. Very well. So many lessons to learn from that. And at this point, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll conclude our analysis with a look at the health and agric ministries. Do stay with us. This is the Key Points. We'll be right back.
Another season of TV3 Talented Kids is here. Season 11 was fun. Season 12 will be super exciting. Are you ready? If you're aged 7, 12 and can sing, dance, play an instrument, draw, act, DJ or have any TV-friendly talent, then it's time to audition for Season 12 of Talented Kids. Audition dates and information are as follows. 18 to 19 January, Takrady inside Connect FM. 21st to 22nd January, Kumasi inside Akuma FM. 24th to 25th January, Accra inside TV3 at Desawe Kanda. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Got the talent? Come flaunt it for the chance to be part of Season 12 of Talented Kids. Also, if you know any child star you think should be on the show, send a video of him or her displaying his or her talent to us via WhatsApp on 054-244-8297 and we will put them on. Talented Kids, free to play. TV3, best in news, best in entertainment. This Sunday on Date Rush.
With his pink lips, I don't believe he's single.
If you really study, it looks like she's doing the short hair, so that means it's like you like short girls.
He has too much energy and he's a bit naughty. I don't like a guy like that.
And you know how to cook. I love that. Trust me, I love good food and I would love my man to serve me in bed.
The all-new season of Date Rush shows this Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. The all-new season of Date Rush is proudly brought to you by Rush Energy Drink, Carnival Liqueur, Ernest Ointment, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, and Napa Foods, Everpure Purified Drinking Water, Note Cosmetics, Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture.
Treatment of cancer can be very expensive, but there is great hope for Ghanaian teachers.
So, cancer is a deadly disease. It's a deadly disease because the treatment involves a lot of money. And so, if you don't have the wherewithal to undergo the treatment, you will die. But we, as teachers, we know that there is a remedy for us.
You bring along your payslip, and then you also bring along your NAT identity card. And once that is established, you are given the treatment free of charge.
Made possible by the collaboration between the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, and the Sweden Ghana Medical Center, SGMC.
Some of our members still not aware that there is a facility like this here.
My wife also talked to her association, which is the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, and were attended to promptly.
If you are a Ghanaian teacher and a member of NAT, you enjoy absolutely free treatment of cancer.
If you are a member, your spouse stands to benefit if she happens to suffer the disease. Your daughter, your son also stands to benefit if she also happens to contract the disease.
NAT Hour, a documentary of hope for the Ghanaian teacher, shows Wednesdays at 5:45 p.m. and Sundays at 1:30 p.m. only on TV3.
Coronavirus is in abroad, not here.
More than 2,000 dead, tens of thousands infected.
The world has been brought to a standstill by the novel COVID-19, which has once again proven that our health is still our greatest asset. And our best bet for a long and healthy life is our lifestyle choices based on information we receive. That's why Vodafone Healthline is back.
Season 9 of Vodafone Healthline is here.
With some of the most experienced and trusted doctors to address your medical concerns by giving you essential guidelines on dieting, exercise, diagnosing, and treating illnesses to help you live a long and healthy life.
Vodafone Healthline shows every Sunday at 5 p.m. on TV3.
Ready?
This Saturday on National Juniors Challenge.
You are welcome to the second semi-final of this year's National Juniors Challenge. My name is Kafuide, your quiz master of all schools represented here. Only one of them will make it into the final of this year's show. Let's put our hands together for Celestial School Complex, Ave Maria School in Dansuman, Pentecost Preparatory School, and from Latibia Okoshi we have Bishop Bowers School, reigning champions actually for the NJC.
Powered by Uniwest Foundation with sponsorship from Best Western Premier Hotel, Bayport Savings and Loans, Bright Schools, Hisons, Institute of ICT Professional Ghana, Prospectus Ghana Limited,
MJ Seafoods, Anasco Skills and Digicom Engineering Limited, Extra Class.
Supported by
The National Juniors Challenge shows every Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3.
Merry Christmas.
You say, obey dialysis.
When the pregnancy wasn't coming, it's like I was disturbed. Is it a special pastoral anointing? But it is God.
Jesus gave the solution to all diseases.
So you're born again. It's as simple as that. And the name of Jesus is named upon you. Everything Christian inspiration and all things Christian entertainment.
Over the Moon shows every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. on TV3 and repeats on Wednesdays at 11 p.m.
Women are the backbone of our families, the force in our workplace, the peacemakers in our communities, the glue that keeps all things together. We set the standards. We are game changers, and we are a powerful force. Hello, my name is Michelle Atto, and I'm your new host on Today's Woman. On Today's Woman, I bring you strong, powerful, influential women from all walks of life. Are you ready to be entertained? Are you ready to learn? Then if you are, join me on new episodes on Today's Woman right here on TV3.
Today's Woman shows Sundays at 3 p.m. and repeats on Fridays at 3 p.m. on TV3.
Brought to you by GTP, Still Timeless,
First National Bank, Fitrip,
Casa Tresaco, Electroland Ghana Limited.
Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to The Key Points with me, Abnatabi, and we are doing an assessment of the performance of the ministers, key ministers in the first term of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration, to hazard guesses as to whether or not they would be maintained or removed from their respective former positions. We asked questions, or we put a question up on social media as to how you would assess the performance of some ministers, and the response are in. We would be taking you through some of them. This one is coming in. It says, from Pontius Pilate, he says, in respect of Gloria Kufu, she says she was very decent with her office. And number two, upon Kojo Nkrumah, he handled the stray bullets so well. I'm not sure which stray bullet that is, but 3, Amewu, he excelled at the lands ministry. 4, Mr. Jogate, he continued to execute the railway development agenda started by JDM. The rest can go and send their application letters to private companies for employment. This other one coming in says, this is Isaac Affle, I believe, says, but to be sincerely honest, in my humble opinion, without being sentimental and of course without offending or jeopardizing who thinks differently from my direction, but rather looking into this serious matter with perspective, distinction, and without condemning your point of view with alacrity. Isaac Affle honestly thinks and feels that I have indeed. So you took us on this long journey to just say you had nothing to say. That's great. Patrick Park Donko is saying, I'm lacking the right words to describe the education minister. Was so poor gambling with education in Ghana. Isahak Wala says, what is the work of the senior ministry? Useless. We don't need any of them, including the so-called president. Let's go up next to see what is there. In respect of Mr. Ken Oforiatta, okay. Sorry, let's see. Al-Hassan Abdullah says, Sanitation Minister, Senior Minister, and Minister for Employment and Labour must be fired. Selom Peter says, Amewu did well as Land and Natural Resources Minister as compared to his portfolio in the Energy Ministry. Averagely, he was good and should be considered. Page 1 says, it's scoring Ken Oforiatta 67%, Matthew Poku Prempe 73%, Kweku Ajimameni, that's Minister for Health, 69%, Mr. Peter Amewu, Energy, 70%, Kojo Opon-Kromah, Minister for Information, 66%, Kwesi Amwakwata, Roads and Transport, that's 74%, and Mr. Jogate scoring 76%. This one comes in and says, okay, those numbers are in respect of particular ministries, and it says that, please, what are they doing on the list? Chia, west of them all is the senior minister. Okay. Brad Tai is also saying that they are all thieves. Where's the Men's Gold seized NAM1 assets? These people will never know. Okay, I think we can skip this. Such words will not be entertained. Abaka Kwejo says, okay, we can skip that as well. Kelvin Akorati says, apart from Ministry of Information and Trade and Health ministers, all of them performed badly, especially Education Ministry, playing gambling with our... Okay, I lost that one. Let's go on to Anita Afo, who says, Peter Amewu deserves another term. Kojo Opon-Kromah was fantastic. Kweku Ajimamenu, Ambrose Derry, Gloria Kufu, and Kwesi Amwakwata, they all comported themselves well. It says, I guess. Ohine Francis Kaunda says, why not mention the Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs Minister, Honorable Kofi Jamasi? I think this man did well. Well, that's noted. Solomon Asachi, okay, no, sorry, that's Dosu Famous Philip says, 5, Honorable Alan Chamating has been very instrumental and focused with the Trade Ministry portfolio. The attention alone given to one district, one factory, and the bid to win the establishment of African Intercontinental Trade Secretariat in Ghana has given us some form of international attention. #retain Alan. Honorable Peter Amewu has contributed so much to achieving the desired results in the various ministries he worked. Once an expert, always an expert. Again, #retain Amewu. The last one says, Honorable Owusu-Efri Yakoto. No, Honorable Owusu-Efri Yakoto, one of the best ministers and gains of our time. His ideas for planting for food and jobs has brought smiles on the faces and homes of many. I think we can end the comments here at this point and return to our panelists to look at the last 2 ministries. And we're looking at the ministries of health and agric. Mr. Benefson, Ministry of Health, Mr. Kweku Ajimamenu, very difficult times, particularly in 2020 when COVID-19 broke. How do you think that ministry has managed?
Oh, I think that yes, COVID was difficult, but pre-COVID, I don't know whether it was with the approval of the president or it was his own initiative not to continue health facilities that the NDC has started and was halfway through. I didn't understand it. If a government leaves office, if you as party, they don't carry the half-completed health facilities to their homes. They leave it there for the country, Ghana and Ghanaians. So if they are in some satellite towns, areas, and they've done work up to 70%, and you leave it and go and start construction somewhere, I don't know what the person is thinking. Is it because you want to award the contract and get a kickback? I don't get it. A typical example is the University of Ghana Medical Center. This center came to life in the midst of COVID. Because NDC had started it, no attention was given to it. When COVID came and there was the need for treatment, they did. I think that thing that he did, because there were many instances of half-completed health facilities that were left, and he had to go and commission these things. And I think that I've heard that he's leaving. Maybe you should go and rest.
What would you score him, by the way?
I'll give you 40.
Okay, right. Professor Abdullahi, on health, prior to COVID, there was a bit about no bed. So we had the no bed syndrome instances and a whole lot. I mean, our healthcare system is riddled with a whole lot of issues.
Yes.
And so, your thoughts?
Well, he started out badly, poorly. And I concur with Uncle Efson that he refused to, open some of the hospitals and others that were started by the previous government, which I think is wrong, because at the end of the day, these are facilities that belong to Ghanaians, whether they are NPP or NDC. I think what humbled him was the COVID. I don't know, I heard he also had COVID, whether that is true or not, but he got to realize that, hey, listen, you need these health facilities until you can bring yours on board. And also there were others that were started that he never saw to it that they were completed. So at the end of the day, I think his term at the health ministry wasn't that productive in my opinion. And I'll give him equally a 40.
Very well, those are 40, wow, that's quite interesting. But let's turn our attention now, we just have about like 4 minutes to conclude. Let's turn our attention to agric, another key sector. We always say that Ghana, can thrive, but would thrive on the back of agric. We always pay lip service to that, never materializing. Then we had the NPP come in and promising to do quite a lot in that area. Planting for Food and Jobs came in, then there were several others that came in, exporting for, I think some other names, I'll be looking at them up quickly, but essentially there were some thematic areas under agric that was pursued by the minister, Dr. Owusu Yakuto. How do you think that went, the performance of the minister?
I think that he did well. Planting for Food and Jobs really opened up the hinterland. But I think that I won't blame him. It should be more of a government policy in terms of linkage between agric and industry, so that where there is an overflow, they should be able to set up industries. They should be able to use, where you cannot build industries now, they should use the traditional methods that our elders have used in conserving foodstuffs for the next lean season. I think that he has done well, given his age, an elderly man in his early 70s. I think he has done well, but agric is huge, and the government must make it a policy of linking agric. And even though he's the president's friend, he's done well, and I'm sure he will be retained at agric. Yeah,
he'll be retained. He will be. That's what you expect. But would you recommend that?
Oh yes, I think I'll give him 55.
55. Okay, he should be happy with that.
He didn't perform well with the worm issues.
The 4 army worms,
yes,
exactly.
Yes, he didn't perform well. I think he handled it poorly. But I think overall the policy is good. It's more like looking at Operation Feed Yourself during the era of the late Frank Benasco, which was a way to be able to mobilize the production of food and making it available. In that aspect, the policy is good, and they've done their bit. I think his background also as an agric professional, so it builds well. I think moving forward, we need to, like Uncle Efson was talking about, we need to be able to link roads where most of these food products are produced to the market, to make sure that the farmers can get most of their products to the market without it getting rotten, or making sure that production is ramped up.
Very well. Now, agric obviously is an area that has great potential. We keep talking about it, but it seems we're yet to have that full potential materialized or come into fruition. But, well, we hope we can take it up as it should be. Did you rate him?
No.
Please, what would you rate him?
50.
50, okay. So that's 5 short of Mr. Benefson's.
Yes.
Anyway, lastly, sanitation and water resources. And this is coming in because, the president made a big deal about sanitation. Indeed, he made some lofty statements about, or is it goals? He stated some goals or objectives that Accra was going to be made the cleanest city in Africa. How did that pan out? Sanitation and sanitation and water resources. Earlier on was the minister there was Joseph Kofi Adda, but subsequently there was that swap. Aviation Minister Cecilia Dapa went to sanitation, and then Mr. Adda went to aviation as well. But all in all, how would you rate that?
I think the government meant well, but there were no punitive measures for dirty gutters because people were not clearing garbage, and there were not areas. People were always dump garbage in the gutters. Rain falls, it spills over. I think that if he wants to get halfway through to making Accra the cleanest city, there might be punitive measures for those who litter the gutters and litter our roads.
Do you think the sanitation ministry should still be on its own, or should be subsumed under,
I think that the sanitation ministry should be on its own, but there must be punitive measures for those who abuse efforts to keep the place sanitized.
Very well. Your rating for Madam Cecilia Dapa?
55.
55. Okay, very well. Professor Abdullahi, your thoughts on
I don't think she did well. Is Accra a clean city? Accra is not a clean city. I mean, if you go to places, there's a lot of stench and trash thrown about. Sanitation is linked to health.
Sure.
And I think at the end of the day, the government might have meant well, but it wasn't achieved. So I don't think she did well. And I'll give her a 40.
Okay, on that note, we bring conversations here to a close. It's a wrap here. It's been an exciting time here looking at the performances of key ministers in the first term of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's administration. And in the studio, we've had Mr. Benefson, a pollster, and also the managing editor of the Daily Dispatch. We've also had in studio Professor David Abdullahi. He is a senior advisor with the African Parliamentary Network. And on Zoom, we had Mr. Franklin Kujo, President Imani join us. Also, we had Mr. Peter Pati-Anti, Institute of Education Studies, the Executive Director, and Mr. Adams Bona, Security Analyst, join us to discuss the various themes under our discussion this morning. Let me say a big thank you to our viewers and our listeners for making a date with us, for spending your Saturday morning with us. We do appreciate that. And we will be back here same time next week. Do have yourselves a very good weekend and stay safe. And once again, thanks to our panelists for coming through and sharing their perspectives. We do appreciate your time. We'll be back here same time next week. Until then, stay safe and stay well. Bye-bye.
Another season of TV3 Talented Kids is here. Season 11 was fun. Season 12 will be super exciting. Are you ready? If you're aged 7, 12 and can sing, dance, play an instrument, draw, act, DJ or have any TV-friendly talent, then it's time to audition for Season 12 of Talented Kids. Audition dates and information are as follows. 18 to 19 January, Takrady inside Connect FM. 21st to 22nd January, Kumasi inside Akuma FM. 24th to 25th January, Accra inside TV3 at Desawe Kanda. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Got the talent? Come flaunt it for the chance to be part of Season 12 of Talented Kids. Also, if you know any child star you think should be on the show, Send a video of him or her displaying his or her talent to us via WhatsApp on 054-244-8297 and we will put them on Talented Kids Free to Play. TV3, best in news, best in entertainment.
Ghana, we got a new episode of Family Feud. Now trust me, your man Steve Harvey, when I say you don't want to miss this. One of my sons' name is Jason.
Hi, Dad.
Wow. Yeah. Who the hell drinking liquor at the ceremonies for the babies?
That's crazy.
Ain't that at a church?
I was praying, Steve.
Amen again. Who you mad at? I'm trying to work with you. Thank you so much.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 8 p.m. and repeat on Thursdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Family Feud is brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
Vodafone.
Hello, lovely people of Ghana. It's your girl Nakia Dramani Sam. Today, I'm very happy to announce to you the Return to School Fair. TV3, in collaboration with 3FM, is having these wonderful packages for you. These wonderful packages are for parents and my fellow brothers and sisters. And it's gonna be fun. Just come to the Junction Mall on the 14th of January to the 17th of January. It's gonna be fun. You know something special about it? It's from preschool to the university. Come get everything you need for schooling. We are going back to school and nothing can stop us. We are unstoppable. I will be there. I'm expecting you there as well. Bye-bye.
This Sunday on Date Rush.
With his pink lips, I don't believe he's single.
If you really study, it looks like she's even the shorter, so that means it's like you like short girls.
He has too much energy and he's a bit naughty. I don't like a guy like that.
And you know how to cook. I love that. Trust me, I love good food and I would love my man to serve me in bed.
The all-new season of Date Rush shows this Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. The all-new season of Date Rush is proudly brought to you by Rush Energy Drink, Carnival Liqueur, Ernest Ointment, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, and Napa Foods, Everpure Purified Drinking Water, Note Cosmetics, Duffy's Ohima Feminine Mixture.